Chapter 1142. Boom boom boom. The shock waves from the magic crystal cannons shot out hundreds of meters in front and behind them. Flames soared into the sky, and the battleships of the Kingdom of Shang were blasted into smithereens. Many of them sank, and most of them were injured by the shock waves from the magic crystal cannons. They started to flood, and the Marines were crying for their parents. Jin Chong looked to the front and back with a cold gaze. "Marshal, we are being bombarded from the front and back." What are you afraid of?" "We are the flagship." Fillet sneered. "I don't believe their cannons are that accurate. Continue to advance at full speed. Aim and use our cannons to retaliate." "Yes." The counterattack of the Shang army was very powerful. After all, they had the advantage in numbers. However, the effect of the cannons was not obvious. Other than a few advanced magic crystal cannons, most of the heavy cannons had fallen into the water. They were hundreds of meters away from the enemy's fleet. Boom boom boom. 30 seconds later, another 2 volleys of cannons came from the front and back. This time, it was even closer, only 50 meters away. Jin Chong's face turned pale. "Marshal, their cannons seem to be trying to adjust the distance. This won't do. We will definitely be hit. Please change direction immediately." "What are you afraid of?" "Continue to attack." Yes, on the flagship, a group of commanders and captaincy-level generals were stunned. The enemy was much more powerful than they had imagined. At this moment, they saw the flag of the enemy. There was a big, Su, character. It was one of the commanders of the Qin Empire, Su Jiantao. It was not the legendary Lin Muyu. Even a Su Jiantao was so powerful. What would happen if Lin Muyu came personally? Boom boom boom. In the distance, the third round of bombardment came from the Longdan army camp. 4 fiery red magic crystal cannons flew through the air and pounced towards the flagship. Oh no! Jin Chong sensed that something was wrong. He quickly activated his devil body Xian Qi. Instantly, the devil flame danced around him. "Marshal, we are going to be hit." Fillet gritted his teeth and entered his devil god transformation state. Boom! Flames soared into the sky. None of the 4 cannonballs missed. In an instant, Fillet's ironclad warship was torn into pieces. The fragments of the warship and the corpses of the soldiers flew into the air. The flames soared hundreds of meters into the air, and waves of air swept out in all directions. In an instant, everyone on the Kingdom of Shang's warship was stunned. The 2 armies had only engaged in battle for less than 3 minutes, and their flagship was already sunk. Amidst the flames, 2 people stood on the surface of the sea. They were Fillet and Jin Chong. It was easy for the magic crystal cannons to kill, but it was far from enough to kill gods. Even so, the 2 demon gods, Fillet and Jin Chong, were still covered in soot. "Marshal is fine. Marshal is fine," everyone cheered and jumped for joy. They laughed heartily and celebrated with each other as if they had just won a great battle. Fillet stood on the surface of the sea, with the waves swirling around him, as if he was furious. He growled, "Attack! Flatten these bastards of the Qin army. Attack at full speed. Send out the dragon riders and crush them." The war drums thundered, and the Shang army fell into a state of frenzy. Although Fillet was fine, the flagship was gone. They could only use other warships to replace the flagship. Moreover, the mortal generals and strategists on the flagship were all gone. 7 commanders and 28 captaincy had sunk into the sea after the 4 cannons. This was a great humiliation, the greatest humiliation in the history of the Shang Empire. Hit. Instant sinking. The enemy's flagship has sunk. The observer was so excited that his voice began to tremble. Fillet is not dead. How could a demon god die so easily? Nangong Lai sneered. Su Jiantao nodded, yeah, I knew he wouldn't die. Pass down the order, continue to maintain the firing position. Abandon Greenstone Island and retreat to Changyuan Island. Maintain the distance from the enemy. Try to hit them while they can't reach us. Pay attention to the reserve of cannons. At least half of them should be left before we make contact with the main fleet. Yes, Commander. At this moment, a flame exploded on the side. The warship next to Su Jiantao's flagship exploded in the middle. It had been hit by a stray cannon from the enemy. The cannons in the hold of the ship detonated, and the entire ship almost instantly disintegrated from the surface of the sea. No one survived. Buzz buzz buzz, the shockwave from the magic crystal cannon swept over, forcing everyone to raise their arms to cover themselves. The flagship was also pushed dozens of meters away. Layers of waves crashed on the surface of the sea, and the ship completely disappeared. Only fragments and corpses were left on the surface of the sea. Su Jiantao felt a chill from the bottom of his heart, but this was war, and war had always been this cruel. He held onto the railing of the ship and said indifferently, "Pass the signal. Everyone, aim at the target within range and fire at will. Maintain a distance of 800 meters. Yes." The warship quickly retreated, only using the heavy cannons at the stern to tangle with the enemy. Meanwhile, Philae's fleet refused to give up. Even though the enemy's casualties had reached more than 1.5, they still chased after them with a murderous aura. For Philae, it didn't matter how many people died. What was important was that he had to eliminate the enemy in front of him. Otherwise, when he returned to the celestial pole continent, he would no longer have a place to stand. Even his identity as a demon god wouldn't be able to hide the fact that he had suffered a crushing defeat. At this moment, a dark mass suddenly approached from the distant horizon. "Commander, it's the dragon riders," the observer shouted. "Damn it!" Su Jiantao gritted his teeth. "All secondary cannons, stop firing. Adjust the angle and aim at the sky. Fire as soon as the dragon riders arrive. I want to see if the current dragon riders are still invincible." Yes. In the sky, the dragon riders were getting closer and closer. Giant dragons roared and pounced. Fire. On the surface of the sea, a flag signal was sent. Instantly, tens of thousands of cannons roared in unison. Countless streaks of fiery light shot into the sky, interweaving into a net of fire. The sounds of clashing and clashing rang out continuously, accompanied by the cries of the dragon riders. In the blink of an eye, dragon riders covered in flames fell from the sky into the sea like giant bats on fire. These were all dragon riders who hadn't comprehended the dragon imperial spiral. However, even more dragon riders swooped down, madly spitting out dragon's breath. They swept through Su Jiantao's fleet. Immediately, miserable cries rang out. Warships were set ablaze one after another. This was the true test. "Don't panic. Put out the fire," Su Jiantao shouted. "Raise your shields and defend against the enemy. Heavy crossbowmen, use the dragon hunting crossbow." The dragon hunting crossbows were pushed out from the sides of the warships. Soon, large nets shot into the sky. Any giant dragon caught in the net would immediately struggle and fall into the sea. Arrows rained down from the ships, continuously hitting the giant dragons' bodies. However, even more of the Empire's soldiers died under the baptism of dragon flames. In the surroundings, the warships began to catch fire. Su Jiantao's shoulders trembled slightly. Hatred surged out from his eyes. At least 100 warships were on fire. After this battle, he didn't know how many of his 50,000 brothers in the Longdan army camp would survive. Evil dragon riders. Fire Fist Zheng Jian suddenly leaped up from the flagship and threw a punch from afar. Immediately, the energy of the Fire Fist landed on the abdomen of a giant dragon. The giant dragon let out a cry and fell into the water. Nangong Lai, Wu Tong, the Beeman King, and the others also left the flagship and killed the dragon riders everywhere. Now, they could only rely on these sacred-level experts to resist the dragon riders. Fortunately, the dragon riders weren't willing to stay after burning a large number of warships. They soared into the sky. After all, the dragon-hunting crossbows and magic crystal cannons of the Qin army weren't just for show. The dragon riders had already suffered significant losses. The pursuit went on for 30 miles. The number of warships under Su Jintao's command was decreasing. Nearly a third of them had been lost. He unfolded the map, sweat dripping from his face. As if he was begging for mercy, he murmured, "We've arrived. It's these coordinates. Come out quickly." "My lord, come quickly." The deputy commanders at the side were silent. At this point, victory was no longer a question. Night fell. A faint murderous intent permeated the Strait of Changyuan Island. On the second flagship, Jin Chong frowned and said, "Marshal, we've gone deeper and deeper. Now we've lost contact with the 2nd Division. Should we retreat? This despicable Su Jiantao just keeps retreating. He has no intention of fighting to the death with us." "Why? Is Lord Jin Chong afraid?" Philae sneered. "Yes, this subordinate is indeed afraid. The Qin people are too cunning. This place makes this subordinate feel that it is a trap that was dug in advance." "Humph, a trap at sea? Looks like Lord Jin Chong is scared out of his wits." "I didn't, then continue the battle." Yes, at this moment, a soldier on the observation deck shouted, "Marshal, look to our east. There seems to be traces of the enemy." "What?" Everyone looked over and saw a bright light in the eastern sea region. It was the light of the signal lights on the warships. Soon, more and more lights appeared, forming a dense patch. "Oh no, it really is an ambush." At this moment, no matter how conceited Philae was, his voice was trembling. "Retreat. Spread the sails and retreat at full speed." "We can't do that, Marshal. The Northwest will send us into their embrace." "Damn it, retreat immediately." "Yes." But the order was too late. Cannons roared in the darkness, and a dense patch of magic crystal shells fell from the sky. It looked like a beautiful fireworks display. Boom, 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 in an instant, countless warships were hit, and light shot into the sky. In the consecutive artillery bombardment, the Kingdom of Shang's fleet had used up all their cannons, but the enemy was still fully loaded. The light illuminated the position of the Shang army's fleet, while the enemy was only floating on the dark sea. Lin Muyu, who was wearing a white cloak of the royal forest, suddenly pulled out the Xian Yuan sword, pointed it at the distance, and ordered loudly, "Continue the bombardment, attack when they are close, don't let a single ship escape." The sound of drums soared into the sky, mixing with the sound of cannons. Flames soared into the sky, and the enemy was in the light while they were in the dark. All the soldiers of the Shang army fell into despair and panic. They knew that the Qin people hated the massacre of the celestial pole continent. The hatred between the two continents couldn't be resolved, and this battle would be their last. Chapter 1143. It's Lin Muyu. It's Lin Muyu's flagship. The soldiers on the observation deck were livid. They looked at the fluttering flag of Lin Muyu's flagship and said, "We are being attacked from both sides, Marshal. What are you panicking for?" Philae, on the other hand, was calm. He lightly punched the bow of the ship and said, "After all, we have twice their number of warships and troops. Don't panic. Split into battle formations and charge left and right. Break out of the encirclement as quickly as possible." "Yes, Marshal." Philae looked at Lin Muyu's flagship from afar with eyes full of killing intent. This man he had never met before had humiliated him too much. He was determined to fight him to the death. However, Philae knew that Lin Muyu had many experts around her. Not to mention the 4 grand sorcerers, there were also Feng Zhanlin, Murong Tianxing, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and other experts. Although they were only in the sanctuary realm, they still had their martial arts techniques. Once they joined forces, even a mid-god like him might not be able to escape unscathed. Therefore, he dared not act rashly. Just as the fleet was turning around, a dragon knight suddenly swooped down from the sky and shouted, "Marshal, something bad has happened. There are enemy warships behind us. It's Feng Jixing's fleet. We are surrounded on 3 sides." "What?" Philae roared. Demonic aura burst out from his body as he flew into the air. He looked at the dense flames and the incessant bombardment in the distance with an ugly expression. He said, "There is always a way out. Our military strength is still above theirs. Pass down my order, all warships are to break out of the encirclement towards the south. Ignore Lin Muyu and Su Jintao's attacks. Charge south and annihilate Feng Jixing's troops. He doesn't have many soldiers." "Yes, Marshal." Philae raised his head and said, "Dragon Knight Regiment, attack. Let Feng Jixing have a taste of dragon flame." "Yes, Marshal." Dragon roars could be heard coming from the densely packed warships. The dragons that were hibernating on the deck rose from the ground and charged towards Feng Jixing's battle formation. However, just as the dragons were halfway through their flight, dense flames rose from Feng Jixing and Lin Muyu's battle formation and charged towards the dragon knights in an orderly manner. "What is that?" Jin Chong narrowed his eyes, but his heart was in turmoil. Those were the warriors riding on the fiery red birds. Almost every one of them had a cultivation level of around the Saint Domain, and their strength wasn't inferior to the dragon riders in the slightest. In fact, they even outnumbered them. The cries of the divine bird phoenix continued to ring out in the sky. The dragon riders were being intercepted and killed, but the undying phoenix was even more agile and fast. Streaks of fiery light flashed by, carrying sword chi with them as they slashed at the dragon riders. The dragon battle spiral could withstand the magic crystal cannons, but it could not withstand the attacks of the Xingtian army. Many people died in the blink of an eye. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they raised their dragon spears and dragon swords to resist. In the blink of an eye, the army and the sky tangled together, and there was no clear winner. "Charge!" Philae stood at the bow of the ship and pointed the long sword in his hand straight forward. He roared, "Charge!" The warships continued to advance, but when they were less than 500 meters away from Feng Jixing's battle formation, there seemed to be a rumbling sound coming from the deep sea. In the blink of an eye, huge whirlpools appeared on the surface of the sea, and the hundreds of warships in front of the Shang army began to spin. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the cold torrents tore the hulls of the ships, and the keels were directly broken. The small whirlpools turned into huge whirlpools, and a huge whirlpool with a radius of 3 miles appeared out of thin air on the surface of the sea. Without a doubt, this was Fuzhu's masterpiece. In the entire Dragon League, only he had the ability to do so. "It's over." Jin Chong looked at the tragic scene in the distance and said, "Marshal, there's something underwater. We can't charge forward like this." "Bastard," Philae's voice was a little hoarse. He raised his arm, and the demonic god's energy spread out along the surface of the sea, dispersing the whirlpool. But it was too late. The sea was filled with corpses and fragments of warships. It was just a whirlpool, and nearly 20,000 Kingdom of Shang's army were turned into nothingness. Dong, 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 from the east, the war drums thundered. It was Lin Muyu's flagship giving the order to attack. Lin Muyu. Philae's eyes were bloodshot, and he roared, "Pass down the order, all warships are to charge towards the east, break through Lin Muyu's battle formation, and return home." Jin Chong nodded and ordered the flag-bearer to pass down the order. But Philae and Jin Chong both knew that resisting at this moment was like a cornered beast. Today, the outcome was already decided. Defeat, a crushing defeat for the Kingdom of Shang's army. One by one, the warships sped forward, facing the flagship led by Lin Muyu, as well as countless magic crystal cannons. The Shang army's warships were blown to pieces, but the remaining warships continued to charge forward, like moths flying into a flame. This was Filet's only chance. Only by relying on numbers could he break through the encirclement of the Qin Empire's fleet. In fact, Filet could escape by himself, but if he didn't bring his army back, he wouldn't have the face to see Emperor Shang. After all, he had boasted before. The two armies were getting closer, and they were less than 100 meters away from the Longdan army camp's warship led by Lin Muyu. Clang! Filet pulled out his sword, and his eyes were full of dancing flames. He shouted, "All the warriors of the Heaven Realm, follow me to kill them. The sea is not enough to stop us, and the pawns of the Eastern Heaven Realm are not enough to destroy us. The glory of the Northern Heaven Realm is not to be desecrated. Kill them and let them know what fear is." On countless warships, the gods from the Northern Heaven Realm pulled out their swords one by one. With a low roar from Filet, everyone jumped off the warship and rushed forward on the waves. Although they couldn't fly, they could at least walk on the water. After all, these people were the best in the Northern Heaven Realm, and they were fierce warriors who had been tempered for thousands of years. Under the illumination of the fire, Lin Muyu's handsome face had a touch of excitement. She slowly pulled out the Xian Yuan sword and said, "The real battle has finally begun. Feng Zhanlin, Murong Tianxing, Changliang, Di Jiang, lead 5,000 Dragon League warriors to attack. Protect the flagship, protect Weichou. Don't stop the cannons, don't let any ship pass." "Yes." Feng Zhanlin raised his saber and laughed loudly. He rushed down the ship with everyone and rushed straight to the densely packed enemy army on the sea. They must stop them from approaching, otherwise the power of these sanctuary experts was enough to destroy the warships. In a naval battle, the warships were the foundation of a foothold, and they must not lose too much. In the blink of an eye, the sea was full of colorful attacks. The battle of the practitioners set off waves on the surface of the sea. Lin Muyu held the Xian Yuan sword in her hand and jumped to the sea about 50 meters in front of the flagship. With a gentle swing of the long sword and the fluttering of the cloak, her whole person gave off a feeling of a deep abyss and a high mountain. The awe-inspiring demeanor of a famous general stunned Situ Sun, Situ Shui and the others. They were also rare generals of the empire, but they did not have the outstanding aura of Lin Muyu. Buzz, buzz, Qin Yin's Donghua sword was trembling slightly, and Tang Xiaoxi had also replaced her hand with the Zhu Rong holy fire sword that Lin Muyu had given her. The two girls guarded Weichou on both sides. At this moment, Weichou was the real protagonist of the battle. The bowstring was drawn. Weichou's clear eyes stared into the distance, and he suddenly released an arrow. Immediately, the sun-shooting arrow turned into a beam of light and rushed into the distance. Puff! On the sea, a holy king expert who was fighting with Feng Zhanlin let out a whimper. A huge hole was shot through his chest, and he knelt straight on the sea, sinking in the blink of an eye. Good brat. Feng Zhanlin turned his head to look at Weichou in shock. Although this brat was from the mortal realm, with the shooting sun bow in his hand, he was able to shoot a target from 1,000 meters away. His eyesight and arm strength were truly incomparable. In the blink of an eye, Weichou shot more than 10 arrows in a row, and almost every arrow killed a Holy Realm expert. This quickly attracted the attention of the Shang army. That lad, Filet evaporated a Dragon League expert with one palm. With a livid face, he said, "Jin Chong, come with me. Let's kill that lad who shot the arrow and destroy their flagship warship." "Yes, my lord." Not only Jin Chong, but dozens of experts from the Northern Heaven Realm also followed him. Everyone's speed was fast and fierce, especially Filet. His iron sword was full of demonic flames, and no one could resist him. Along the way, he attacked and killed nearly 2 digits of Dragon League experts before approaching the flagship. In front of him, there was a person floating on the water. It was Lin Muyu, who wore the 5-star rank of the Imperial Marshal. "It's Lin Muyu!" Jin Chong shouted. "Kill him!" Philae laughed and suddenly sped up. Like a ghost, he stepped on the waves and dashed forward in a zigzag trajectory. Suddenly, he launched an attack from the flank. The iron sword was covered in flames. Lin Muyu didn't expect the opponent to be so fast. After all, the disparity in strength was too great. Buzz! The golden gourd wall penetrated his body and blocked with the Xianyuan sword. Bam! A loud thud could be heard. Felix's brazen sword strike had actually caused Lin Muyu to be pushed back nearly 10 meters. Her arms were numb, and she looked to be in a sorry state. "You're just SSO." Felix laughed heartily and suddenly opened his palm. Instantly, the power of his domain swept across the surface of the sea in front of him. The demonic flames turned into sharp arrows that shot towards Lin Muyu. "Turn into ashes for this, daddy." However, Lin Muyu suddenly disappeared from the surface of the sea. It was not because she was moving fast, but because she had sunk into the sea. The waves under the water surged with faint starlight. Suddenly, a figure flew out from the side, and the Xianyuan sword slashed with the energy of the purple sun. It was the purple sun falling from the star technique. Under the illumination of the sun, Lin Muyu's clear eyes were filled with determination. This gaze actually caused Felix's heart to turn cold, and his speed to slow down. Bam! The shockwave rippled on the surface of the sea. Felix blocked Lin Muyu's attack without moving an inch, while Lin Muyu was sent flying dozens of meters back. She was already panting heavily. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, the sun-shooting arrow flew past like lightning. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 experts from the Northern Heaven realm had already fallen in front of the flagship like meteors. Only Jin Chong roared angrily with his long spear in hand, and thrusted towards Wei Chou with a vast divine power. However, the two beautiful girls didn't let Jin Chong's attack go. The Donghua sword and Zhu Rong's sacred fire sword crossed to block, and the flames and holy light rose. Bam! With the combined strength of Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, Jin Chong's spear was shaken off. In fact, cracks even appeared on the handle of the spear, and it shattered in the air. How is this possible? Jin Chong was shocked. Under the impact of the awe-inspiring air waves, Wei Chou narrowed his tiger-like eyes and quickly drew his longbow. He aimed at Jin Chong's heart and shot an arrow. Puff! Purple demonic blood splashed down from the sky. Jin Chong's eyes widened. It was hard to imagine that he would be shot to death. Before his body landed on the ground, there were roars of demonic creatures around him. Streams of demonic aura dissipated and his demonic body disappeared at this moment. At the same time, his body emitted a golden light that flowed and dispersed like sand. In the blink of an eye, this inferior demon god had returned to ashes and dust to dust. A demon god was nothing more than this. Chapter 1144. Felix could naturally feel Jin Chong's death. Although he had the absolute upper hand in his battle with Lin Muyu, the moment that Brat on the flagship drew his bow, Felix's heart trembled. Before Wei Chou could draw his bow, he had already stepped on the ripple wave, and with a poochie sound, he broke through the void and retreated a few hundred meters. He didn't dare to continue fighting. Even though he was a mid-god, he was no match for Lin Muyu's meticulous planning. Retreat! Retreat! Philae loudly ordered, "Pass down my order, everyone retreat. Defend against their attack with an iron bucket formation. The Qin fleet must have a limited supply of cannons. They can't possibly keep up the bombardment. When they run out of cannons, it will be time for us to counterattack." This roar allowed the shaken Shang army soldiers to find a trace of comfort. At the very least, the marshal's flag was still there. They are defending with an iron bucket formation, Situsen said with a frown. Perhaps Philae is right. We can't run out of cannons here. Lin Muyu said, there is still a fierce battle waiting for us at Jiufeng Island. We must conserve our cannons. Pass down my order to stop the bombardment. The Gong Gong Navy will begin their attack. When they are in a mess, approach them, hook their warships, seize them, and kill them. Yes. The entire surface of the sea was ablaze. Wreckages of warships were burning. Less than half of the 3,000 warships that Philae had brought with him were left. More than 1,000 warships were huddled together on the surface of the sea, defending themselves like an enormous tortoise shell. Great Qin's warships slowly approached, getting closer and closer. They were less than 100 meters away. On the Iron Bucket Formation warships, the Shang army soldiers were trembling. Most of them were new recruits. This was their first battle, but they didn't expect that they would be greeted with death. The native cannons and magic crystal cannons on the Shang army's warships had long been exhausted. At this moment, they could only rely on arrows and stone ballistae to bombard the enemy. However, they were completely useless against the sturdy warships. On the contrary, under Situ Sen's command, some people holding black iron pipes appeared on the warships of the Great Qin Empire. They struck the air and instantly, the Shang soldiers fell like wheat being reaped. That's right, it was the armor-piercing bow that Feng Jixing mentioned. It was also the submachine gun in Lin Muyu's heart. What the hell is that? Philae frowned as he looked into the distance. A series of bullets were fired at him, but they were all deflected by the god power strong wall in front of him. Keep shooting arrows and use the iron hooks to intercept them. Don't let them get close. Some high-ranking officers ordered loudly. They were familiar with naval warfare, but they weren't the commanders of this battle. Beside Philae, Captaincy, who was wearing a red robe, said in a low voice, Marshal, we can't keep defending. We need to think of a way to charge out. In this subordinate's opinion, why don't we give the order to raise the sails? The night wind is strong, and we can ram through Feng Jixing's troops in the southeast and force our way out. Once we make contact with the Second Corps, we can make a comeback. Oh. Philae turned to look at him and said, that's a good idea. What's your name? This subordinate is called O. Before he could finish his sentence, a soft tongue suddenly flew out from the side of the sea and wrapped around Captaincy's head. It forcefully dragged him into the sea. Instantly, the sea churned, and there were even wild beasts roaring. It was as if a group of vicious sea beasts was having a meal. Blood instantly dyed the surface of the sea red. What the hell is this? Philae watched as his subordinate was killed, but he didn't lend a helping hand. It wasn't that he couldn't do it, but he was scared out of his wits. At this moment, Philae was scared out of his wits. A group of Shang army soldiers shot arrows into the water, but by the time the arrows reached the water, the horseshoe crab people had already disappeared. Instead, thumping sounds came from the bottom of the ship. Everyone's hair stood on end. One of the staff officers said, "What's that sound?" "It seems like there's something at the bottom of the ship." Philae frowned and said, "What kind of person is Lin Muyu? How can he use these monsters as an army? This person, is he even human?" No one could answer this question of his. But not far away, a warship was already flooded. The water had entered the cabin, and it would sink in 3 to 5 minutes. The soldiers on the ship were wailing and fighting over the driftwood to save their lives. One after another, more and more warships were sunk. The morale of the army was in chaos, and it had completely collapsed. What's worse was that the warships of the Qin Empire all approached, hooking the sides of the ships and forcing them to approach. The Qin soldiers with broadswords jumped onto the warships and began slaughtering. At the bottom of the sea, the Gong Gong navy climbed up along the sides of the ships, waving their sharp blades and rushing into the crowd. After a round of slaughter, the defeat of the Shang army was certain. In the air, the dragon knights circled around. One of the dragon knights said with an ashen face, "Marshal, we can't get out of here. Hurry and leave with the Dragon Knights, as many as you can. Otherwise, we'll all die here, Marshal. Okay. Let's go. Scared out of his wits, Philae leaped into the clouds and shouted, all dragon riders, follow me to the Second Corps, and find reinforcements to save the situation. On the sea, a large group of Shang army soldiers were dumbfounded, and they all knelt down and begged for help. Marshal, don't leave us, Marshal. However, what greeted them was only death. Before the war, Lin Muyu's order was not to keep any captives. Food and warships were scarce resources, and keeping captives would only consume their own resources, which was not a wise move. But now, the result had been determined, and all that was left was the process of slaughter. Nearly 2 hours later, over a big half of the Shang army's warships had been seized, and the remaining hundreds were powerless to resist. Pass my order. The Xianyuan sword was stained with blood. Lin Muyu sat tiredly on the corner of the deck of the flagship and said, leave Si Kongyao's troops to continue cleaning the battlefield. The rest of the fleet will follow the flagship to the battlefield of Jiufeng Island. Speed is the most important thing in war, go to the battlefield as soon as possible. Yes, Marshal. The bugle sounded, and Lin Muyu's flagship was the first to turn around and rush to the northeast, followed by Feng Jixing's fleet. Undercurrents surged under the water, and countless Gong Gong Navy troops moved along with the fleet. In the air, the cries of Phoenix could be heard. Although Xing Tian's army had suffered a great loss, they still had the power. Changyuan Island was less than 40 miles away from Jiufeng Island, and could be reached in 2 hours with the wind. Lord, drink some water. Wei Chou kneeled on one knee and handed over a glass of water, which was faintly stained with blood. Lin Muyu thanked him and drank up the glass. As he said, the glass had a faint scent of blood. After a fierce battle, no pure water could be found anymore. Blood and corpses were everywhere. There were 300 people on the flagship, but by now, only 224 were left. This was war, and death was a common thing. Lulu, come out. Lin Muyu gave a deep growl. Instantly, a buzzing noise came into his ears. A scout bee landed on his wrist and quickly transformed into Lulu's silhouette. Brother, I'm here. Check the situation of Qianfeng's battle near Jiufeng Island. I want to see it now. Okay. Lulu's silhouette disappeared and was replaced by the dark scene of artillery bombardment. The 50,000 national fleet commanded by Qianfeng had been surrounded by the enemy and suffered heavy losses. There were only a few warships left, and the 50,000 people in the national fleet would most likely be lost. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a pain in his heart. Although Qianfeng was a surrendered general, he was still a rare loyal and brave general. Adjust the angle of the fleet to the south by 15 degrees. Lin Muyu said indifferently. Wei Chou frowned and said, Lord, we are now moving at full speed. The flagship is fast and has already left a lot of the fleet behind us. Only less than 100 fast ships can keep up with our speed. If we change the angle, I'm afraid we will directly rush into the enemy fleet. Moreover, the best way is to outflank them from 3 sides. We need to slow down and wait for the 2 corps led by General Feng and Xiang Yu to outflank them from the left and right before we attack. It's too late. I can't let Qianfeng die. Lin Muyu shook her head and said, let's rush into the enemy fleet. We'll disrupt their battle formation first, then let General Feng and Xiang Yu attack from the left and right. The result will be the same. Yes, this subordinate obeys. Lin Muyu stood up again, looked at the dark sea, and said, where's Candle Dragon? In the water, a silhouette flew over. Candle Dragon cupped his hands and said, yes, Lord. What's your order? Lead the Gong Gong Navy to reinforce Qianfeng's fleet, no matter the cost. Yes. Lin Muyu looked at the sky and said, Situ Sun, Situ Shui. Yes. Dragon Knight and Dragon Knight answered together. You lead our dragon knights. I'll give you the Xingtian heavenly army as well, along with 25 giant flying snakes. Reinforce Qianfeng's army as fast as possible. No formation is required. This time, we just want to attack with speed and catch Filet's second corps unprepared. Yes. Lin Muyu hesitated briefly and said, "Forget it, I'll go with you." Summoning a Catasaurus, he leaped onto the dragon's back and said, "Shao Yin, I'll leave the main fleet to you. Consult General Feng of the Wei army." Qin Yin's eyes were as clear as water. "You have to be careful too." "Yes, I'm going." Streaks of light flew across the sky. Added with the surging seawater, the two armies headed straight for Eternal Wind Island. A Catasaurus's sharp claws slowly spread out in the clouds. Its flying speed was extremely fast, faster than all the Xingtian heavenly army and dragon knights. It immediately arrived at the main battlefield 10 li south of Eternal Wind Island. The densely packed fleet of the Kingdom of Shang had already surrounded Qianfeng's troops. Qianfeng's close to 1,000 battleships were left with less than half, but they were still firing back with all their might. Dragon flames. Lin Muyu gave the order. A Catasaurus immediately opened its mouth and spat out a scorching dragon breath. It ignited dozens of battleships on the surface of the sea. The power of the laws disappeared and the gods fell. However, a Catasaurus was a dragon. Its power was not affected at all. All of its dragon power came from its bloodline. Flip. Lin Muyu continued to give the order. A Catasaurus then flipped over and faced the sea with its back. Lin Muyu drew her long sword and activated her profound energy. A sword aura streaked across the sea and cut 7 battleships in half. On the surface of the sea, several figures flew over. They were the sanctuary realm experts of the Kingdom of Shang's army. Meet them. Lin Muyu gave the order, armor transformation. Immediately, a Catasaurus's body began to disintegrate, turning into a majestic dragon armor that attached itself to its owner. A pair of red dragon wings fluttered in the wind. Lin Muyu brandished her sharp sword and swept forward like a whirlwind. Pft, 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 the divine sword was sharp. Along the way, blood splattered everywhere. More than 10 sanctuary realm experts were slaughtered by Lin Muyu without any ability to retaliate. Chapter 1145. Lin General, that's Lin General. In the distance, Qianfeng, who was surrounded on the imperial warship, couldn't help but be overjoyed. He raised his sword and shouted, "Warriors, Marshal Lin has come to reinforce us. The battle on the main battlefield is over. The main army will be here soon. Hold on, it's time to counterattack." The soldiers who had lost all hope immediately rejoiced. The warships were filled with people knocking bows and arrows and carrying heavy magic crystal cannons. Qianfeng's troops had suffered heavy losses. Many warships were severely damaged, and some were even unable to fire back. Corpses were piled up in the corners of the deck. They couldn't let the dead be eaten by the fishes, so they had to bring the corpses to the land to be buried. This was a sign of respect for the dead. On the surface of the sea, fragments of the warships floated everywhere. Many soldiers were crying for help in the water, but what greeted them were the powerful crossbows and arrows of the Shang Empire. Arrows rained down like rain, dyeing the surface of the sea red in the blink of an eye. Lin Muyu was only one person. How many people could she save? In the sky, the roars of dragons could be heard. The dragon knights had arrived. Over 100 dragon knights led by Situ Sun and Situ Shui descended from the sky. They wantonly breathed dragon flames and instantly dyed the sky red. With the arrival of the Xingtian heavenly army, the Shang army fleet on the southwest side fell into chaos. Not long after, ripples surged on the surface of the sea. Numerous Gong Gong navy soldiers drilled out of the water, wielding long halberds, bows, and swords. Wet sharp arrows danced in the air, shooting the soldiers on the warships into the water. More Gong Gong Navy soldiers began to attack the bottom of the enemy's warships. They were equipped with the same white diamond weapons, which could easily break the iron armor at the bottom of the warships. The Shang army fleet began to panic. In addition to the army of Hua men that kept appearing on the surface of the water, these frightening things were sucking people down from the warships. Moreover, they were very ugly, so ugly that it was a little shocking. This had already cast a deep shadow in the hearts of many Shang army soldiers. Whoosh! Lin Muyu, who was wearing the dragon armor, slashed his way through the water surface and landed on the deck of Qianfeng's flagship. Behind him, the Shang army's warships were sinking. Lin Muyu alone had destroyed nearly 20 warships. At this time, he had also consumed a large amount of dou qi and needed to rest. After all, he was now immortal, and no longer an omnipotent god. Qianfeng led a group of subordinates and knelt down. Greetings, Marshal. Dispense with the formalities. Get up and continue fighting. Lin Muyu sat on the side of the ship and looked at the fire in the distance. Marshal Qianfeng, you need to hold on a little longer. Our main battleships will arrive in about an hour. Yes, I understand. Qianfeng's face was covered with soot from the magic crystal cannons. He asked with bright eyes, Marshal, what's the situation on Changyuan Island? Annihilated. Lin Muyu smiled faintly. Filet escaped with the dragon riders, but Jin Chong didn't manage to escape. He was shot and killed by Wei Chou. Ha ha ha, he can even shoot a demon god dead. Duke Wei is really something. Qianfeng and Wei Chou had fought for many years, and he knew Wei Chou's character and ability very well. When he heard that Wei Chou had killed a demon god, he was happy from the bottom of his heart. Lin Muyu said meaningfully, Marshal Qianfeng, you led a mere 50,000 men here and stalled nearly 500,000 enemy troops. Your contribution far exceeds that of Wei Chou. I thank you on behalf of the Qin Empire. You're welcome. Qianfeng suddenly turned around and looked at the sky. He frowned and said, what a familiar aura. It's my army, isn't it? Yes. Lin Muyu smiled and said, I've ordered the giant flying snake troops to come and help. Let the enemy have a taste of the giant flying snakes before the main fleet of the Empire arrives. Good, very good. It didn't take long before huge creatures appeared in the sky. They flew in the sky like mountains, their bodies flashing with blue lightning energy. They were the giant flying snakes that they hadn't seen for a long time. There were a total of 25 giant flying snakes moving slowly. Although they couldn't compare to the flying speed of the Xingtian heavenly army, they were much faster than the speed of the ships. What is that? The people on the Shang army warships were in chaos. The commander in charge of the fleet, the former general of the Blackstone Empire, Shi Yuqiu squinted at the sky and said, Ballistae and crossbowmen, get ready. No matter what comes, shoot them down as soon as they enter the firing range. Yes, Commander. The crossbowmen all widened their eyes as they looked at the giant flying snake in the distance. At the same time, they could also see the flying creatures circling around the giant flying snake. Those were the winged people, the troops responsible for protecting the giant flying snake from the dragon knights. However, Lin Muyu's meticulous thinking was far too far-fetched. Filet hadn't led the dragon knights here at all. He had long since escaped without a trace. The tragedy of the naval battle at Changyuan Island had completely frightened this demon god out of his wits. Roar roar roar, the giant flying snake didn't stop roaring. It opened its mouth and began to suck in everything below it. Instantly, the seawater surged, and water splashed into the snake's mouth and evaporated from its back. For a moment, a huge wave rose up, and the Shang army warships couldn't escape in time. The giant flying snake's force field storm was so powerful that by the time it got close to the warships, the Shang army's ballistae and crossbows had already become decorations. The crossbow bolts had already changed directions in the air, so they couldn't cause any damage. As for the magic crystal cannons, they had long since used up their shells, and the giant flying snake was unstoppable. "It's coming. Be careful." The faces of the people on the warships were pale, and they were all at a loss. Soon, the warships flew up one by one, and were swept into the giant flying snake's force field along with the waves. Even the people on the warships were torn to pieces. With 25 giant flying snakes wreaking havoc together, it was as if doomsday had arrived. Looking at the scene of the warships falling apart in the distance, Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel glad that she had made the decision to spare the descendants of the demon race. It was as if the heavens had decreed that the gods would become mortals, and after becoming mortals, the giant flying snake became even more like a god on the battlefield, invincible. Even the sanctuary realm experts who tried to attack the giant flying snake were pulled into the force field, and in the blink of an eye, they were crushed into a pile of minced meat. It was a tragic sight. The giant flying snake indeed shouldn't exist in the human world. Lin Muyu said. Qianfeng smiled and said, "The giant flying snake comes from the hive, and the hive's energy source comes from an alternate dimension. That's a world with advanced technology. Just as you said, Lin General, the giant flying snake and the armor demons don't belong to this world. Now that they are part of our army, it's our great fortune, and the enemy's great misfortune." "That's right." Lin Muyu nodded and said, "Pass down the order, let the giant flying snake move to the east, block the retreat of the Shang army, and form a pincer attack with our main fleet coming from the west." "Yes, your subordinate obeys." At the end of the day, the giant flying snake really listened to Qianfeng, not Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu was merely a temporary commander. When Qianfeng was around, the demons would submit to the female empress Qin Yin. If Qianfeng wasn't around, the demons would definitely rebel. Whether it was the advanced demons, the armor demons, the giant flying snake, the winged people, or the Hui Navy, they all needed Qianfeng to suppress them. These were a group of desperados. From this, it could be seen that Qianfeng was too important to the Qin Empire. And Qianfeng was grateful to Lin Muyu. From being an opponent to a close friend, they appreciated each other, and it was this friendship that created the prosperity of the Qin Empire today. Qianfeng didn't have many magic crystal cannons left, and even the sound of the cannons couldn't be heard. After half a minute, a muffled sound was heard. Although the giant flying snake was wreaking havoc, there were too few of them. The enemy still had more than 2,000 main warships surrounding Qianfeng. They kept approaching and attacked Qianfeng's warships with bows and stone cannons. At this time, it was almost dawn. Bang! The loud sound of cannons from the west meant that the main force of the Qin Empire's fleet had arrived. Then, the sound of cannon fire became continuous. Under the illumination of the white light in the distance, the densely packed imperial fleet appeared on the surface of the sea. The purple light from the explosions of the magic crystal cannons bloomed like flowers of death on the surface of the sea. "The reinforcements are here." All the people under Qianfeng laughed, and the morale of the army was boosted. The feeling of survival from a desperate situation made their hearts feel as if they were about to jump out of their chests. In the air, Lin Muyu's Xian Yuan sword was covered with blood. The dragon armor wings behind him suddenly disappeared, and he fell on the deck powerlessly. He had consumed a lot of energy and was already very weak. "Come on," Qianfeng ordered, "help the marshal into the cabin to rest and get a bowl of meat soup for him." "No need." Lin Muyu waved his hand and said, "I'll stay here and watch the army win. I won't go anywhere." As he said, he slowly sat on the wet and cold deck under the ship's railing. A soldier of the spiritual fire department came out of the cabin and brought 10,000 bowls of fragrant soup. He said, "This is the potato and deer meat soup that is not much left. Please enjoy, Marshal." "Thank you." Lin Muyu took it and drank a mouthful. Immediately, a warm current flowed from his throat to his stomach, and he felt much better. He exchanged the remaining half of the bowl of soup with the elder of the spiritual fire division and said with a smile, "I'm not drinking anymore." You can have the rest. It seemed that everyone had not eaten for a long time. From the beginning of the battle last night until now, there was no time to eat at all. The old man of the spiritual fire department's throat twitched when he smelled the soup. He must be hungry. Lin Muyu glanced at Qianfeng and said, "Tell the spiritual fire department to cook. Everyone has a bowl of hot soup. Drink while fighting." Qianfeng was pleased. "Yes, sir." The flag bearer passed the order, and the spiritual fire department of each ship began to get busy. In the blink of an eye, the sky was already bright. In the distance, Qin Yin, Feng Jixing, and Xiang Yu's battleships had begun to outflank Vilay's Second Legion. The heavy cannons were unleashed, and the outcome was set. The bombardment and fierce battle continued until noon. The last 1,000 battleships of the Shang army actually raised their white flags in unison. They had decided to surrender. Chapter 1146. Stop the attack. The strong smell of blood filled their nostrils as they raised their arms and roared. The flag bearer of Qianfeng's flagship quickly passed down the order, and the sound of cannons became less and less frequent. "What's wrong, Marshal?" Qianfeng narrowed his eyes and said, "Didn't we decide not to keep any captives?" "That was then, and this is now." Lin Muyu said, "The overall situation is uncertain, and keeping captives is a burden. But now that the overall situation has been set, bring these captives back to the celestial pole continent, give them 3 months' worth of rations and military expenses, and then give them grain seeds and let them go home to farm. This way, they can spread the wisdom of the Qin Empire to the entire celestial pole continent." What a good deal. But, Qianfeng was somewhat hesitant and said, "In the naval battle of Changyuan Island, we almost annihilated nearly 500,000 Shang army soldiers. Our reputation for killing has already spread. Isn't it futile to accept them now? Don't worry, the Shang army near Changyuan Island has already been wiped out. No one knows that we slaughtered 500,000 people." A hint of killing intent flashed in Lin Muyu's eyes as she said, after entering Shiping City, immediately put up a notice to pacify the people. "Tell the world that the Shang army captives near Changyuan Island have been left on Changyuan Island because of the shortage of warships. They will be sent by fishing boats to the Shattered Tripod Realm to serve as farm laborers." Qianfeng smiled slightly and said, "Marshal is wise. To attack the world, attack the heart. Marshal is indeed an expert." Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "Marshal, why tease me? Do you think I, Lin Muyu, want to be such a scheming person who stirs up the storm? But if I don't do it, won't someone else have to suffer?" Qianfeng knew that she was talking about Qin Yin. He smiled and cupped his fists, saying, "Qianfeng swears loyalty to Marshal and Her Highness Yin in this life. Even if I die in battle, I will never regret it." "Thank you." Lin Muyu patted his shoulder lightly and said, "But now is not the time for you to climb a mountain of swords and dive into a sea of flames. Now is the time for you to make contributions. Take the captives and the warships." "Yes." A speedboat sped away, slowly docking at the edge of the Shang army's flagship. Lin Muyu and Qianfeng leaped onto the flagship. Both of them were wearing the armor of the Qin Empire, and their military insignias were flashing, making them easy to recognize. The commander of the fleet, Shi Yuqiu, had also seen some generals of the Qin Empire before. The one with 2 golden stars was captaincy, and the one with 3 stars was the commander. Shi Yuqiu had seen 2 stars, but he had never seen a higher one. This time, 2 people came, one with 3 stars and the other with 5 stars. One could imagine their status in the army. Surrendering General. Shi Yuqiu greets the 2 sirs. Shi Yuqiu knelt down, and the commanders, deputy commanders, captaincy, and kiliarchs behind him also knelt down. Lin Muyu raised her hand and said, "Commander Shi, please rise." "I am Great Qin's Lin Muyu." I represent the Qin Empire to accept your surrender. Now, please put down your weapons. Yes. Shi Yuqiu put down his sword and put it on the deck in front of Lin Muyu's feet. With a bit of doubt on his face, he asked, "How does the marshal plan to deal with us?" "Don't worry. Since I have accepted you as captives, I won't kill you. After you go ashore, disband your army. I will give you food, travel expenses, and grain seeds. You can go back to your hometown to reunite with your families." "Really? Thank you, Marshal, thank you, Marshal." Shi Yuqiu kowtowed again and again. Lin Muyu nodded and didn't say anything more. She just ordered the sergeants to raise the purple flag of the Qin Empire on the flagship. The fierce battle on the East Sea finally ended after nearly a day and a night. In the end, the Qin Empire won completely. The warships carrying the captives sailed eastward with the wind and arrived at the shipping port before dark. At this time, the flag of the Qin Empire was flying over the shipping port. The town of Tang had lived up to expectations and had taken the city. One by one, the warships docked at the port. At the same time, the magic crystal cannons, shells, and warhorses were transferred to the shore. In the evening, a celebratory dinner was held in the residence of the shipping port. However, it wasn't really a celebration. It was more like reorganizing the three armies. Everyone looked gloomy and didn't feel the joy of a wild victory. The Empress Qin Yin sat at the head of the table, while Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi sat on both sides. Feng Jixing, Qian Feng, and the others sat next to them. Everyone was waiting for the staff officer to finish the statistics. Zhang Wei tore off a chicken leg and ate it as a sign of respect. On the other hand, Wei Chou smiled faintly. He rested his chin on his hand and seemed to be in a daze. The lights in the residence were a little dim. Xiang Yu, Chen Xiaoli, Qin Yong, Bai Li Cang, and the other generals looked at Qin Yin and Lin Muyu with burning eyes. The atmosphere of this celebratory dinner was a little too heavy. Not long after, Guan Xing walked into the hall with a list in his hand and said respectfully, "Your Highness, the statistics are out." "Read it," Qin Yin said. "Yes." Guan Xing looked at the list and said, "In this battle, our army lost a total of 1,844 warships, more than 84,700 soldiers, 52,100 missing, and about 70,000 injured. More than 80% of the magic crystal cannons were used up, and more than 100,000 warhorses were lost. In addition, nearly half of our rations and equipment were lost. After distributing the Jinin coins to the captives, we were left with less than 30%. The combat strength of the entire army was greatly depleted. All the generals were stunned. Only now did they know why Qin Yin and Lin Muyu didn't have any smiles on their faces. Although the fierce battle at the East Sea was considered a great victory, the losses were far beyond anyone's imagination. More than 50,000 people are missing, which means that 130,000 people died in battle. Lin Muyu's eyes were somewhat dull as she said, "In addition to the 70,000 injured, only half of our 450,000 soldiers can fight in the battle at the East Sea." Wei Chou cupped his fists and said, "Marshal, the most important thing is that our rations have been exhausted. There is no food in this shipping port. When the enemy retreated, they burned the granary. We don't even know where the rations for tomorrow's noon are. After all, we still have 300,000 soldiers, and the daily rations are an extremely terrifying number. General Ding Shi, as the commander of the supply department, what do you have to say?" Ding Shi frowned and said, "Even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. This is all I have on hand. Most of the warships are occupied by warhorses, weapons, armors, and heavy artillery. I can't do anything about it." Chu Yao said, "Also, there is a serious shortage of medicine. Half of the warships that were responsible for transporting medicine were sunk by Philae when he broke out of the encirclement. Now there are more than 70,000 wounded soldiers in need of medical treatment. Bleeding control, anti-inflammatory medicine, and other medicines are extremely insufficient. Xiangyu said, Lin General, Shipingport is only a port. It is not a place to stay for long. We must quickly capture a large city as a foundation, otherwise, we will be trapped here. Although the Shang army was routed at sea, their land army didn't suffer the slightest loss. Once they attack, we will be caught off guard. Lin Muyu only felt an incomparably big headache. She said, one by one, let's talk about the rations first. How much gold coins have we brought? Quickly send people to the nearby areas to purchase food and livestock. I'm afraid this is just a drop in the bucket. Tang Xiaoxi said, Chen Yu is such a powerful person. He has already ordered to fortify the walls and clear the fields. The civilians near Shipingport will not have any food, unless we are like Gong Shangming and Baiming Huan, capturing and eating people. The Qin army will never eat people. Lin Muyu looked at Si Kongyao with pleading eyes. She said, Yao, think of a way. Si Kongyao pursed her red lips. You finally thought of me? Humph, I do have a way, but it depends on whether you want to use it or not. Yes, tell me. Shiping City, such a huge city, one of the famous cities in the celestial pole continent. Right now, there are only Chen Yu's 10,000 old, weak, and sick soldiers defending it. Once we take Shiping City, will we have to worry about food? Will Chen Yu give Shiping City to us so easily? Lin Muyu was a little suspicious. She frowned and said, if I were Chen Yu, I would burn down Shiping City and not leave it for us. I think Chen Yu has already done that, Qin Yin said. Situ Sun raised his eyebrows and said, if I were the marshal, I would not waste time chatting here. Instead, I would send an armored cavalry with armor-piercing bows to attack Shiping City. Shiping City is only 400 miles away from Shipingport. We can reach Shiping City in one night and attack it before Chen Yu has time to burn down the granaries. This is the best strategy. I think so too. Lin Muyu smiled and picked up an arrow of command. She said, Situ Sun, listen to my order. I order you to immediately lead 20,000 armored cavalry from the Longdan army camp to attack Shiping City overnight with the aim of seizing the provisions. You must solve the problem of the provisions before dawn. Damn. Situ Sun grinned. Is it just because I spoke too much? Yes, what else do you have to say? Can I finish the soup before I leave? No, I can't. Servants, fill a pot of thick soup for General Situ Sun and let him drink it on the way. Yes, Marshal. Situ Sun did not know whether to laugh or cry. He cupped his fists and said, I understand. Marshal, if you torture me like this, I will definitely get hemorrhoids. Even if I get hemorrhoids, I must take Shiping City. Go quickly. Yes. Everyone laughed. Looking at the three armies, perhaps only Situ Sun dared to speak like this to the Marshal of the Empire without being punished. However, Situ Sun was indeed a famous general and a fierce general. He would definitely complete the orders given by Lin Muyu. As for the methods used, that was secondary. A few minutes later, Situ Sun carried a pot of thick soup and left. Lin Muyu said, continue, tell me how to solve the problem of the lack of medicine. This is relatively simple. Si Kongyao replied, less than 70 li from here, there is a county city called Fei County. Fei County is a city famous for its medicinal herbs. It was once the city where all the herbs in the West Mountain province were concentrated. I can immediately dispatch 5,000 cavalry to Fei County. Before dawn, they will bring back a large amount of hemostatic and anti-inflammatory medicines. Chu Yao said happily, if that can be done, that would be the best. At this moment, Qin Yan, who was guarding the door, walked in and said, Big brother, it's starting to snow again. It's snowing again, Lin Muyu frowned and said, let's not care about that. Order the three armies to rest and reorganize tonight. We will leave for Shiping City tomorrow morning. Yes. Wait a moment, Commander Beilitsang. I have an order for you. Marshal, please instruct me. Beilitsang cupped his fists. Tomorrow morning, bring dry rations and water and leave Shiping Port with 30,000 of the Empire's navy. Return to Lingdong province and transport the rest of our troops and supplies over as soon as possible. We have captured nearly 3,000 Shang army warships, enough to be your cargo ships. Yes, understood. Chapter 1147. Shiping City was the economic, political, and military center of the Xishan province. At this moment, the sky above the city was covered in snow, and there were almost no lights in the city. No one knew how long the winter would last, but everyone knew that they had to conserve charcoal and other resources. Otherwise, they would not be able to survive this long winter. The sound of hooves outside the city broke the silence. When Situsen arrived outside the city with 10,000 cavalry, he only saw that the west gate of Shiping City was wide open. There was not even a curfew or any soldiers guarding the gate. What's going on? Facing the dark city gate, Situsen squinted his eyes and said, "The gate is wide open, and there are no guards. It looks like there's a trap." Captaincy smiled and said, "Deputy Commander, the art of war says that the real is fake, and the fake is real. Chen Yu is an expert at scheming. Since the gate is wide open, could it be that there are no ambushes at all? Could it be that this is just an empty city to delay the speed of our attack? Forget it. The three armies need rations. We don't have time to waste." Situsen raised his hand and said, "The 1,000 soldiers of the 1st Battalion will be divided into 10 teams. Every team of 100 will enter the city to search for rations and the situation of the people. Report back here in 2 hours. You must be extra careful. Chen Yu may have buried some kindling or magic crystal cannons in the city. We are used to these kinds of tricks." "Yes, Deputy Commander." Amidst the hurried sound of hooves, a group of people quickly entered the city. Situ Shui pursed her red lips and said, "Brother, I'm worried. Should I lead 10 dragon knights to spy on the situation in the city from the air?" "Yes." Situsen nodded and said, "You must be careful." "Okay." With a low roar from the dragon, Situ Shui also left. Holding his sword, Situsen urged his horse to circle around on the snowy ground. He felt very uneasy. However, if he thought about it carefully, almost all of the magic crystal cannons and native cannons in Shiping Prefecture had been taken away by Philae's main fleet. Chen Yu must be very short of supplies. Moreover, he only had 7,000 or 8,000 old, weak, and disabled soldiers. Why would he set up an ambush in the city? However, even though Situsen had tried his best, he still couldn't stop the development of the situation. In less than an hour, a series of loud booms could be heard in the city. Soon after, flames rose from the sky in the distance, and even the sound of fire arrows piercing through the air could be heard. "Oh no, someone is arson." Situsen gnashed his teeth. "Are we going in now?" Captaincy was a little angry. "Don't be rash. After all, Situsen was experienced in battles." He squinted his eyes and said, "Let's wait for the report from our brothers in the city. We've only sent 1,000 men in. We can't send more troops in." "Yes." As expected, in less than half an hour, a continuous stream of cavalry from the Longdan army camp rushed out of the city. Each of them was covered in dust. One of the Kiliarchs said, "Deputy Commander, they've buried a few magic crystal cannons in the city. They just detonated them. Also, there are piles of firewood every 3 to 5 households in the city. Now, these piles of firewood have been set on fire. The city is on fire and it looks like it's going out of control. Do you see the figures of their soldiers? Yes, they've already escaped from the east gate. Damn it, Chen Yu is such a despicable person." Situsen trembled with hatred. He said, This lunatic wants the millions of people in Shiping City to die with us? Where's the grain? Where's the grain stored in the city? The granary of Shiping Prefecture is on fire. The flames are soaring. We can't get close at all. God damn it, Situ-san pulled out his sword and said, quickly enter the city to put out the fire. Send a letter to the Marshal and His Highness to inform them of the situation here. Quickly, immediately, send someone to beat the drums and gongs to encourage the people to come out and fight the fire. We can't let Shiping City, a 1,000-year-old city, burn down in the blink of an eye. Yes. In the blink of an eye, the 10,000 steel cavalry became a special force to fight the fire. However, it seemed that the number was far from enough. Chen Yu was too smart. He knew that most of the people in the city had left the city to cut wood and come back to pile up firewood. Now that the fire had burned the people's firewood, it would also burn down Shiping City. Without the people and grain in Shiping City, the hundreds of thousands of troops of the Qin Empire would not be able to establish a foothold on this continent. Until noon, the fire had still not been extinguished. Nearly half of Shiping Prefecture had been burned down. The once prosperous Shiping Prefecture had become a thing of the past. Outside the city, Lin Muyu accompanied Qin Yin and led the vanguard cavalry of the army to Shiping City. Situ-san and Situ-shue led the steel cavalry to greet them with their faces covered in soot. Without saying anything, Situ-san dismounted and knelt on the snowy ground. Ignoring the soot on his face, he said with red eyes, "My lord, I am incompetent. The granary has been set on fire. We didn't even manage to get a single grain of rice back. Moreover, many of the houses of the people are also on fire. I can only order the troops to stop futilely trying to put out the granary fire and have them help the people fight the fire instead." Lin Muyu dismounted and helped Situ-san up. She said, "General Sun, you did not do anything wrong. We should help the people fight the fire. Only by winning the hearts of the people can we conquer the world." The Qin Empire came from afar to let the people of the celestial pole continent know of Her Highness's wisdom and that the Qin Empire is a civilized country governed by a constitution. Yes. Thank you, my lord, for not pursuing the crime of dereliction of duty. You did not dereliction of duty. It was Chen Yu who was too cunning. Lin Muyu walked into the city. A group of ashen-faced soldiers from the Longdan army camp knelt on the snow on both sides of the road and said loudly, "Greetings, Lin General. Get up." Lin Muyu's heart was cold. He looked up at the sky. Fine snow was still falling, mixed with some grayish-white smoke. He stretched out his hand and caught a piece of dust. The dust rolled out of his palm. Lin Muyu felt a slight pain in his chest. This was the dust after the rice was burned. Chen Yu was indeed ruthless. He wanted to end the food supply of Shiping City. What is the specific situation of the food supply, Shue? My lord. Situ-shue said with red eyes, the largest granary in Shiping Prefecture has been burned. It is said that Chen Yu has been collecting food in the city for the past few days. It seems that he has also burned it. Now, in Shiping City, millions of grains have been burned. Not only is there no food in the treasury, but even the people's homes have no food. There is only enough for them to eat. It is definitely not enough to support our army of hundreds of thousands. The three armies rely on military provisions. Without food, there will be a mutiny. Lin Muyu took a deep look at Situ-shue and said, "We must find a way to get food as soon as possible. Otherwise, the army will starve from today onwards." Situ-shue said, "My lord, I have found a useful piece of information. Although Chen Yu has left with his defeated soldiers, he did not take everyone with him. Before Chen Yu left, some of Filet's subordinates had relatively luxurious mansions in Shiping City. In addition to many servants and concubines, these mansions also have a lot of food and fodder. We can slaughter pigs for the new year. First, take some people to raid these people's homes and get some food to solve the urgent problem." "Good idea." Lin Muyu's eyes lit up and said, Situ Sun, Situ Shui, do it immediately. Yes. The two of them led the cavalry without stopping. Lin Muyu turned around, held the reins of Qin Yin's warhorse, and said, Let's go. We will accompany Her Highness to Shiping Prefecture. Shiping Prefecture was the center of Shiping City. It was also the place where Qin Yin would be overseeing for a long time in the future. With the Empress here, the morale of the three armies would be boosted. When the group of civil and military officials entered Shiping Prefecture, they were somewhat astonished. They had long heard of the affluence of the celestial pole continent, but no one had expected that a mere Shiping Prefecture would be as luxurious as Zetian Palace Hall. In fact, it might even be more luxurious. One could well imagine how luxurious Tianji Palace Hall was. It was simply unimaginable. In front of Shiping City, the 12 dragon-shaped totem pillars of the Tianji Empire towered into the sky. Although they were a little charred, it didn't affect their imposing manner. Behind the pillars was the main gate of the mansion. 8 people entered and 8 exited. At this moment, the guards had already been replaced by imperial guards and imperial guards. Everyone entered through the main gate. From afar, the main gate was actually 1,000 meters away from the mansion. Along the way, there were paths paved with glazed crystals, and both sides of the path were heavily guarded. Shiping Prefecture must have been extremely prosperous in the past. With such a superficial appearance, it's no wonder that the Tianji Empire was defeated. Feng Jixing laughed. However, Lin Muyu didn't think so. She said, the biggest reason for the Tianji Empire's defeat wasn't extravagance, but the disunity between the emperor and his subjects. If Baiming Yuan didn't suspect Gong Shangming, Filei, and Chen Yu, and didn't fight among themselves, this wouldn't have happened. That's true. Feng Jixing raised his head and looked at the fire at the back of the main hall. He said, that should be the place where the granary was burned. Yes. Lin Muyu frowned and said, Chen Xiaoli, Tang Zhen, and Xiang Yu, the 3 commanders, immediately gather manpower to fetch water to extinguish the fire. Minimize the damage to Shiping City from the fire to the greatest extent. Yes, Lin General. The 3 commanders turned and left. Lin Muyu continued, Wei Chou, go and put up a notice to appease the people. Put up the empire's constitution and inform the people of Shiping City that from now on, Xishan Province is the territory of the Qin Empire. Everything will be governed according to the empire's constitution. Order the 3 armies to not offend the local people. Otherwise, they will be punished by military law. Yes, milord. Wei Chou brought a group of staff officers and went straight to the side hall. For the time being, that would be their office. Lin Muyu looked at Chu Yao behind her and said with a smile, Sister Chu Yao, temporarily set up the spiritual medicine department in Shiping Prefecture. That way, we can take care of each other. I'll listen to you. When it was close to dusk, rows of carriages carrying provisions entered Shiping Prefecture. It was Situ Sun and Situ Shui who had returned. Their faces were full of excitement. How much provisions did you get from raiding the houses, generals? Feng Jixing asked with a smile. 50,000. We got at least 50,000 dawn of provisions. Situ Sun laughed and said, these bastards really hid a lot of provisions. Chapter 1148. 50,000 dawn. Lin Muyu was silent. Situ Shui was stunned. Why? Do you think it's too little? I thought we could get at least 100,000 dawn. Lin Muyu frowned and said, we need to provide rations for 300,000 soldiers. That means we need to consume 30 to 40,000 dawn worth of rations a day. The 50,000 dawn you got is only enough for one day. It's far from enough, yes. Feng Jixing nodded. It's a pity that the millions of dawn of provisions in Shiping Prefecture have been burned. Otherwise, it would have been enough for our army to stay here for a month, Ding Shi cupped his fists. I will take out the gold coins from Shiping Prefecture's treasury to collect and buy food from the people. I hope it will be enough. It's too difficult. Feng Jixing said, the Tianji Empire has been fighting for a long time. The food has been almost consumed. Situ Shui said, My lord, I heard that there is a grassland about 20 miles south of Shiping City. There are several large ranches there, which used to be the property of several aristocrats. Later, they were taken over by the Yangshang dynasty and became the property of the state. Why don't we send people to the ranches overnight and drive the cattle and sheep over to serve as food for the army? That's a good idea. Do it immediately. Yes. As soon as Situ Shui left, the group of people sat in the hall with sad expressions on their faces, and just sipped on their tea. What should we do now? Lin Muyu looked at Ding Shi and said, Marshal Ding, you are the commander of the supplies department. Say something. I don't care. You have to get food for me. Ding Shi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm new here. Do you think I have everything? Besides, should you, the commander of the 3 armies, say something like, I don't care? After saying that, Ding Shi pondered and said, if it doesn't work, we can only send the army to capture the surrounding prefectures as soon as possible to collect food. Xishan province has been managed by Si Kongyao for many years. It is a relatively rich province. The granaries of various prefectures are still full. Chen Yu has burned Shiping City, but he doesn't have the energy to burn more prefectures. Attacking prefectures requires food. This is a big problem in itself. Wei Chou hit the nail on the head. Ding Shi squinted and smiled. There is another way. Bring enough money and buy food from the villages and towns. That won't work. This is in conflict with our constitution. What will the people think of the Empress? Lin Muyu shook her head. This method is unpopular and must not be implemented. Ding Shi spread his hands. This won't do, that won't do. I'm not going to be the commander of the supplies department anymore. Lin Muyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't. You are making things difficult for us if you shirk your responsibilities. Ding Shi grinned and said, how about this? Si Kongyao and Lu Bai are more familiar with Xishan province than we are. However, they have brought people to get medicine. We will discuss this when they arrive at Shiping City. That's the only way. At this moment, Chu Yao came from the back of the palace and said, the spiritual fire department has prepared dinner. Everyone can eat. Those who want to eat, come over. Okay, Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing stood up together, picked up the helmets on the table, and followed Chu Yao to eat. Wei Chou, Zhang Wei, Luo Yu, Guan Xing, and the others looked at each other and immediately followed. They fought to be the first in battle. It should be the same when eating. The entire back of the palace was brightly lit. 8 large tables were set up, and most of the captaincy and commander-level warriors were eating here. Moreover, the dinner was very simple. There was no chef, and it was all cooked in a big pot made by the spiritual fire department. However, everyone's physical strength was exhausted, and they ate with relish. No one spoke and just lowered their heads to eat. Halfway through the meal, Si Kongyao and Lu Bai returned. Yao, sit down and eat with us. Lin Muyu ordered someone to add a stool to the side. After Si Kongyao sat down, she said gloomily, that bastard Chen Yu actually set fire to my Shiping prefecture. I am so angry. I have managed Shiping prefecture for so long and renovated it so many times. I planned to have a palace-like residence for Brother Yu and the Empress when they came down, but now it has been burnt black. I am so angry. She didn't seem to want to eat and kept stomping her feet. Lin Muyu said, Yao, let's not talk about these useless things. The most important thing now is rations. Chen Yu set fire to the granary in the treasury. Now we are out of rations and only have 1 day's worth of rations left. Otherwise, we will have to kill the horses to appease our hunger. Do you have any ideas? For example, are there any cities or prefectures nearby that have a lot of rations and are easy to conquer? The matter of rations, Si Kongyao actually smiled. Her smile was extremely sweet. She said, "Brother you have to praise me on this matter." "Oh? Why?" Lin Muyu was stunned. Even Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, Feng Jixing, and Qin Yan were very surprised. No one knew what this princess of Shiping was up to. Si Kongyao smiled and said, "A year ago, I ordered the construction of an imperial garden on the right side of Shiping City that covers an area of half the size of Shiping Prefecture. There are all kinds of rare flowers and fruits planted in it. It can be said to be evergreen all year round and very beautiful. Although there are no artificial mountains, it can still be considered a paradise. What's there to praise? Should I praise you for your extravagance?" Lin Muyu was speechless. But Si Kongyao tilted her head and smiled. "There is a huge cellar under this imperial garden. For more than a year, I have secretly purchased rations from Xishan Province and Huiyuan Province and stored them in there. My guards are responsible for transporting and storing them. No one knows that there is a cellar under this imperial garden and there are a total of 1.2 million don of rations in there." "What?" Lin Muyu was so shocked that she stood up. "Just now, I went to the imperial garden to take a look as soon as I entered the prefecture. Sure enough, that idiot Qin Yu only burned down the imperial garden. He didn't realize that the entrance to the cellar was under the only newly built pavilion in the imperial garden. How is it? Quickly praise me." She pouted her small mouth and looked very cute. She made Feng Jixing, Wei Chou, and the others stare at her in a daze. Lin Muyu was ecstatic. She couldn't help but hug Si Kongyao and said happily, "Yao, you are the savior of the three armies. I thank you on behalf of the Qin Empire." Being hugged, Si Kongyao's face was full of a happy smile. But when she saw her two sisters-in-law, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, looking at her like this, she immediately felt a little guilty. She stuck out her tongue to express her apology. After a few seconds, Lin Muyu let go of Si Kongyao and said, "Wei Chou, immediately take some people to move the provisions in the cellar." "Yes, Your Excellency." Wei Chou put the steamed bun in his mouth, picked up the helmet and left. Ding Shi clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Thank you, Commandery Princess of Shiping. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid that I would have been dismissed as the commander of the supply department. Lin General, can I breathe a sigh of relief now?" "No, you still have to continue gathering rations. 1,200,000 don is only enough for a month. Don't forget, we will have another 500,000 soldiers coming from Lingdong province soon. We need to prepare rations before they come. Then how should I collect? I don't care. If I do, I will be the commander of the supply department." "Bah," Ding Shi grinned and said to the general beside him, "San Gung, immediately assemble our provisions transport team after dinner. We will go to the surrounding villages and towns to scrape a layer of oil first." Ding Shi nodded and said, "Yes, Commander." Si Kongyao pursed her lips and smiled. "It's not difficult if you want more provisions. Within 100 miles from Shiping City, Jiaoyuan Commandery, Shangchong Commandery, Shizhong Commandery, Jingyuan Chamber of Commerce, and Tianyuan Shang League will all have provisions. Moreover, the garrison of these three commanderies is less than 1,000 people. With my token, we can trick them into opening the city gates. As for Jingyuan Chamber of Commerce and Tianyuan Shang League, they are old friends with our Baizhe mercenary group. As long as we have the money, the provisions will flow continuously to Shiping Prefecture through various channels." "That's great." Feng Jixing said with a smile, Your sister is too powerful. I have a feeling." "What feeling?" Lin Muyu asked. Obtaining Si Kongyao is equivalent to obtaining half of the Tianji Empire. Actually, I have the same feeling. Si Kongyao blushed and said, Brother, you left the Bai Zhe mercenary group to me and asked me to do things. I must not let him down. I must complete the task well. Otherwise, I will not be the Tianji sect Si Kongyao in vain. Lin Muyu suddenly thought of something and asked, Yao, how is the Tianji sect now? Sigh, not good. Si Kongyao was a little sad and said, ever since grandfather ascended to the realm beyond Avalon, the Tianji sect's main altar was destroyed by Yangshang's men. Many of the Tianji sect's members wandered the martial world. I don't know how many people still support the Tianji sect. Why don't you rebuild the Tianji sect's main altar in Shiping City? Lin Muyu thought for a while and said, from now on, you will be the Tianji sect's new leader. Announce to the world that you will invite the Tianji sect's members to Shiping City to serve the Tianji sect and the Qin Empire. This way, not only can you win over the hearts of the people, but you can also win over a group of skilled soldiers for the Qin Empire. What do you think? Si Kongyao pouted and said, You're thinking about the Tianji sect again. Brother Yu, do you want Yao's life to play with you in this world war? We have been together for a long time, Lin Muyu said with a smile. Qin Yin said, Yao, don't worry. The Qin Empire will never forget your meritorious deeds. Moreover, you started this war only to protect himself and to pacify the war. Once the war is over, the entire celestial pole continent will be handed over to you to govern. You should be relieved now, right? I hate governing the country. I want to travel with Brother Yu and my two sisters-in-law. Si Kongyao blinked her eyes. Oh, there's a new member in the team, Feng Jixing said with a smile. Si Kongyao was stunned. What do you mean, General Feng? Feng Jixing said, because Yu has already promised that once the war is over and order is restored, he will bring his two wives, me, the big brother, Chu Yao, and Shi Yan to travel the world together and not care about the affairs of the world. Now that you are added, doesn't it mean that there's a new member in the team? Si Kongyao couldn't help but smile sweetly. So, we are a big family? Yes, at the side, Ding Shi smiled and said, your family really plays an important role in the entire universe. Chapter 1149. What? One day? Just one day? In the Tianji Palace, Yangshang flew into a rage and threw the sword in his hand down the stairs. The sword rolled and fell at the feet of the messenger. The messenger was so scared that his whole body trembled and his face turned pale. The messenger trembled and said, Your Majesty, Emperor Shang, Lord Fillet has arrived. He is just outside. Let him in. Yes. Outside, a group of golden-armored warriors were lined up in 2 rows. Felix, who was dressed in military attire, walked in calmly. He knew that he had to remain calm. Otherwise, he would bring a fatal disaster upon himself. In fact, if it wasn't for his identity as a mid-level deity, Felix wouldn't have been able to escape death upon returning to Tianji City. Fillet knelt on one knee and said, Sinful General Fillet greets your Majesty. Yangshang's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He said, Fillet, as the deputy commander, this naval battle was commanded by you. 2 million troops, 7,000 warships, and the entire Shang Empire's navy were annihilated in your hands. In just one day, the Qin trader actually landed on the shore and seized Shiping City. Shouldn't you say something? Fillet kept his head bowed and said, Your Majesty, although it is said to be a 1,000,000-strong army, most of them are just to make up the numbers. Many of the soldiers boarded the warships for the first time. They can't draw a bow or operate an oar. Moreover, it's a patchwork army. They have no combat power at all. Moreover, Chen Yu has transferred away the main force, the Tianjue Corps. Even the generals who are good at naval battles have been transferred away. I have no one to use, so I can only fight in a hurry. The opponent is too strong. The opponent is too strong. Yangshang gritted his teeth and said, before we descended to the mortal world, Bai Minghuan of the Bai Ming family could break through the Qin Empire's defense line and annihilate their navy. Now, we are being annihilated by the opponent. Are we, the gods of the Northern Heaven Realm, inferior to the Marshal of the Tianji Empire, Bai Minghuan? Times have changed, Your Majesty. Fillet said in a low voice, I've read the history books. When Bai Minghuan attacked the Broken World, the Qin Empire didn't have any naval battleships, and they didn't even pay attention to the navy. But now, Lin Muyu has built a navy with all the resources of the empire. They are well equipped, with long-range, accurate magic crystal cannons, and guns that can spit fire. Yes, those weapons are like the weapons of the Seven Realms, advanced firearms. 7 realms? Yang Shang's eyes were cold as he said, what's the point of mentioning the 7 realms now? You are a god with a demonic body. With your abilities, can you travel to the 7 realms and ask for reinforcements? This subordinate is powerless. It's good that you know. Yang Shang took a deep breath and said, Fillet, as the vice-marshal, you are arrogant and look down on everyone. That's why you suffered such a crushing defeat. I'll strip you of your position and cut your salary by half. You don't have any objections, do you? Fillet's expression didn't look good, but he still cupped his hands and said, It's my fault, General. Yang Shang waved his hand and said, Get in line. Fillet took a few steps back and stood in front of the group of generals. Even though he was stripped of his position, his status in the kingdom of Shang was still very high. After all, as a demonic god, his status was already above everyone else, and he had committed such a heinous crime of dereliction of duty. But Yang Shang still didn't kill him for 2 reasons. First, he couldn't be killed. If Fillet fought back, he might run away, and that would leave behind a great threat. Second, Fillet's power was still useful, and Yang Shang didn't want to kill him so early. Looking at the officials, Yang Shang's gaze was indifferent. Looks like we have underestimated the rebels, as well as Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. Let's discuss, what should we do next? Fillet, Han Wan, Zhou Binlong, and the other generals kept quiet. They had all seen Lin Muyu's outstanding military skills, and naturally didn't dare to volunteer. If they lost again, it would be a crime on top of a crime. What? Our great Shang's officials are already terrified by mere Qin rebels? Yang Shang was a little angry, and the armrests of his dragon throne cracked. Your Majesty. A strategist walked out from the crowd, standing in the chief strategist's seat. He was about 30 years old, had a refined and handsome appearance, and wore a white robe, giving off a sense of ethereal elegance. He was none other than the chief strategist that Chen Yu had recommended to Yang Shang, ghost genius Sun Shi. Sun Shi was born with a bitter life. It was said that he had committed a crime against the heavens, and all his relatives had died. However, he was an outstanding strategist, and was one of the few intelligent people in the kingdom of Tianji. Lord Sun, do you have something to say? Yang Shang asked. Sun Shi nodded and smiled, yes. Speak. Your Majesty, the Qin army is now at its peak, but they have a huge shortage, and that is, they have come from afar, and they are lacking in rations, weapons, and herbs. Therefore, we don't have to attack Shiping City by force. Instead, we can fortify the surrounding walls and clear the fields. With the military forces of Huiyuan Province, Tianji Province, and Liaishan Province surrounding them, the Qin army will collapse on its own in less than a month. Easy for you to say. On the side, a strategist in a green robe sneered, Lord Sun Shi, do you think that Lin Muyu is an idiot? Will he just sit and wait for us to fortify the walls and clear the fields instead of attacking the city? The one who spoke was none other than the second strategist, Gong Bujin, Gong Shangming's cousin, and also a smart and agile person. Sun Shi smiled, this one has never underestimated an opponent, not to mention a famous general like Lin Muyu. What I said about fortifying the walls and clearing the fields is not as simple as it sounds. If we want to trap Lin Muyu, this swimming dragon, then we must dig a deep pool. I have already sent people to secretly inquire and found out that the majority of the Qin army's warships have already begun to return to Broken Cauldron Realm. This trip must be to transport troops, rations, and other things, and the warships responsible for the transport will not have too many troops. Therefore, why doesn't Your Majesty send a letter to the pirates on the southern islands, ordering them to intercept the returning warships of the Qin army? The heavy cannons on these warships have already been unloaded, and there are only a dozen or so people on each ship. They basically have no fighting power. The pirates on the southern islands are enough to destroy this huge Qin fleet. What does Your Majesty think? Yang Shang narrowed his eyes and smiled. Cunning, you smart people are too cunning. Ha ha ha, but I like it. As for the matter of the letter, Lord Sun Shi can write it yourself, and I will stamp it with my seal. Sun Shi bowed his head and smiled, continuing, this is only the first step of this one strategy. There is still a second and third step. Lord, please speak. Yang Shang had already begun to regretting that he had underestimated this group of strategists at the start of the war. He should have used their suggestions more. Sun Shi smiled faintly and said, the first step is to cut off the Qin traders' retreat, and the second step is to rely on Marshal Chen Yu to complete. Oh? What do you mean? Sun Shi chuckled. I found out that in the Battle of the East Sea, Lin Muyu captured hundreds of thousands of our soldiers. In order to buy people's hearts, Lin Muyu released these surrendered soldiers and gave them travel expenses to go home to farm. Lin Muyu's intention to steal the world is clear, but this has also sown the seeds of disaster for himself. Most of these surrendered soldiers are from the Huiyuan province, and Marshal Chen Yu's army is stationed in the Huiyuan province. Your Majesty can order the marshal to gather these surrendered soldiers and order them to immediately return to Shiping City, falsely claiming that their homes have been burned down and they have nowhere to go. They are willing to surrender to the Qin army. In this way, as long as Lin Muyu keeps this group of people, we can attack at any time and destroy the granaries and equipment in Shiping City, causing chaos in the Qin army. Wonderful. Really wonderful. Filet also clapped his hands and laughed. Yang Shang's face was full of joy as he said, it is indeed a wonderful plan. Then what about Lord Sun Shi's third step? The third step? Sun Shi smiled faintly and said, as everyone knows, Lin Muyu's Baizhe mercenaries are on good terms with the demon Emperor Nujiang in the Forest of No Return. I believe that if nothing unexpected happens, Lin Muyu will definitely send people to the Forest of No Return to seek help from the demon race. This is also our chance. While setting up ambushes and killing the demon race along the way, we can change into their armor and attack Shiping City under the guise of the demon race. At the same time, Longshi's 300,000 Black Lava army in the southern Liaishan province, Marshal Chen Yu's 200,000 Tianju army in the Huiyuan province, Tianji Empire's 200,000 Thunder Soul army in the north, and Miss Dora's 50,000 Divine Feathers battalion will attack together. Will Lin Muyu's 300,000 troops be enough for us to kill? Yang Shang couldn't help but laugh, his eyes shining brightly. He stood up and said with a smile, Lord Sun Shi's words are really enlightening. Someone, appoint Lord Sun Shi as the commander-in-chief and military advisor. Act according to plan. Yes, Your Majesty. Shiping Prefecture, in the courtyard of the rear hall, Lin Muyu sat on a huge cyan rock. Lulu's image appeared on the scout bee in his hand. Did you get any news? He asked. Lulu shook her head, no, Tianji Palace is heavily guarded. A group of very strong people are guarding the house and the door. My scout bee can't get in at all. Many of them have been cut in half by a sword, so I can't get any news. Then continue to deliver potatoes. Okay, big brother, but... Lulu looked at him with watery eyes and said, but there hasn't been any sunlight for more than 2 months. Lulu doesn't have enough energy to produce sunlight, so our potato garden lacks sunlight to photosynthesize. We can't continue to produce potatoes. The potatoes that Lulu can bring Big Brother will also be greatly reduced. Big Brother, you better make more preparations. Yes, I understand. Lin Muyu frowned and said, Lulu, you go rest. I should also go discuss some matters. Okay. Lin Muyu looked up at the sky and frowned again. She didn't know when the heavens opened their eyes and gave the shattered cauldron realm a god that represented the righteous energy of heaven and earth. At this time, above the heaven realm, as if it was at the edge of the universe, auspicious clouds lingered and spiritual light slowly gathered. A flat mountain peak that reached into the clouds was illuminated by auspicious light, giving people an indescribable feeling of comfort. Gold, the origin of the righteous energy of heaven and earth in the 6 realms. Whoosh! A beam of light that soared into the sky landed on gold and slowly gathered into the appearance of a person. He had white hair and a youthful face. He had an outstanding celestial appearance and a pair of eyes filled with pity as he looked at the distant 6 realms. It was Heaven Emperor Fuxi, also the eldest disciple of ancestor god Pangu. 6 realms, it's been a long time. Fuxi sighed and said, I didn't expect you to become like this. Chapter 1150. Bzzz. The energy of the laws above the metals suddenly trembled, and it was as if the heavens and the earth had changed color. In next to no time, 4 rays of light poured down in succession behind Fuxi, and they transformed into human figures. There were 2 men and 2 women, and they were precisely Fuxi's 4 disciples. They respectively represented the sun, moon, and stars, Fanyang, Miue, Wanxing, and Haochen. You're here? Yes, we await Master's orders. The 4 knelt on the ground. The eldest disciple, Fan Yang, looked upright and fierce. Master, the metal has been abandoned, why have we come here? To rebuild the metal. Fuxi smiled, how long have you 4 been cultivating with me in the sky beyond heaven? About 20,000 years. Miue blinked, she was extremely beautiful, as if her every frown and smile could change the color of the world. It's been 20,000 years. Fuxi smiled and said, now, we will fight side by side again. Fight? Wanxing was startled. Yes, fight. Fuxi looked up at the void above the metal and said, the demonic world's violence and evil energy are constantly eroding the 6 realms, and the divine beast Shiming has already been assimilated. It roams the universe, wreaking havoc and wreaking havoc. The metal is the source of righteousness between heaven and earth, so we must protect it and not let Shiming devour it. Miue nodded, disciple is willing to protect the metal with master. Fuxi still stood at the edge of the metal, looking at the 6 worlds far away, come here. The 4 disciples walked over in unison. What do you see? Fuxi asked. Nothing. Fan Yang shook his head. Miue pursed her lips, not saying a word. Wanxing said innocently, Master, I can see that the 6 worlds are in chaos. Of the 6 worlds, only 1 is left, but it's being devoured by the blood clouds. It seems like, someone is using his life to maintain the current situation. That's right, that's the 8 Desolation Domain, our former home. The person who's holding on is called the 7 Luminaries Demon Emperor, the ruler of East Heaven, and also the sworn brother of your junior brother. Youngest brother's sworn brother? Miue was stunned and said, Master, did you really accept a 5th disciple? Yes, his name is Lin Muyu, one of the 2 great marshals of the Eastern Heaven realm. I have already imparted the invisible elephant art to him a long time ago, but, he is currently in the shattered cauldron realm and has lost his divine power. He is currently engaged in a mortal war, and his opponent is highly likely to transform into a demon god. Miue was a girl who was protective of her own. She gritted her teeth and said, will those fiend celestials kill junior brother? No, I won't allow little junior brother to be killed. Master, Please allow me to go to the Shattered Cauldron realm and help little junior brother. No. Why, master? Miyue had a puzzled look on her face. Fushi said majestically, because the heavenly punishment is a punishment for all the gods in the 6 realms. It is also a tribulation that Lin Muyu is destined to face. It is a tribulation that cannot be avoided or avoided, and no one can help him. This tribulation can only be resolved by himself. Whether it is life or death, it is his fate that he must bear alone. Furthermore, we still have our own matters to attend to. Miyue pursed her red lips and murmured, "Yes, disciple obeys." Master, then what is our matter? Our matter is about to come. Fushi looked towards the sky and saw the golden light shining brightly. Dark clouds rolled in the sky and thunder rumbled. Rays of azure light rolled in the clouds. Soon, a huge creature swayed its huge body and rushed out of the clouds. It was the demonized divine beast Mingshi. Its bloody mouth was big enough to swallow the heaven and earth. After it opened its mouth, lightning flashed and it pounced towards Jin. Just in time. Fushi raised his hand and pulled out an ancient and heavy longsword from his back. It was the Infinite Sword, a first-tier divine artifact that had followed Fushi for many years. The Infinite Sword glowed with a blue light, and as Fushi swung it, it immediately turned into a blue beam that shot into the sky and blasted towards the Mingshi in the sky. Boom! The light in the sky exploded. After being struck by the sword, the divine beast Mingshi actually roared angrily. It was only injured but not killed. It opened its huge mouth and began to absorb the energy. Suddenly, the whole of Jin City was roaring. Evil creature! Fushi shouted in a low voice. Rays of golden light flew out from under his feet. He raised his palm and shouted, "All things in the world, listen to my command." Suddenly, Gold's body surged with a righteous aura. It was like a heavy hammer that struck the divine beast Dark Servant, causing it to howl in pain and retreat. However, its huge tail swept toward Gold. It was bent on destroying Gold. Get into formation, 5 elements Great Void Formation. Fushi shouted. The 4 disciples quickly flew into the sky. Divine power surged from their bodies, and together with Fushi, they formed a mighty Great Void Formation. Suddenly, a powerful righteous aura swept out, and the divine beast Mingshi was forced to retreat again and again. It wagged its tail and hid in the blood clouds. The blood clouds gradually dispersed, and the Mingshi was nowhere to be seen. It will come again. Fushi's eyes were filled with worry. He said, "I didn't expect a mere Mingshi to become so powerful after absorbing such a large amount of demonic aura." Meiyu's brows furrowed slightly. "Teacher, has the devil realm really become so powerful?" "Yes." Fushi's gaze was calm. He said, "The ancient supreme demon god Chu Xingyun has awakened from his slumber, and it feels like he has broken free from the seal. However, we should thank the 7 luminaries Demon Emperor. If it wasn't for him blocking the first wave of demonic aura from Chu Xingyun and supporting the 8 Wastelands realms' last bit of righteous aura, Jin would have been destroyed long ago. We would have come in vain, and we wouldn't have been able to save the 6 realms." Then, Miyue's expression was solemn. "Are we just going to wait here and do nothing?" "Yes, we can only wait for the Mahayana heavenly path to form, and wait for the gods to awaken. The Mahayana heavenly path, yes, that is the supreme heavenly path, the heavenly path that transcends the 6 realms. In other words, as long as he doesn't comprehend the Mahayana heavenly path, he will be in great danger in the mortal realm." Miyue still couldn't forget about helping her junior brother in the mortal realm. Fushi didn't say yes, nor did he say no. He just slowly sat on the broken rock at the edge of Jin, like an old man fishing. He quietly watched the living beings of the 6 realms, watched them grow old and die, and watched the impermanence of life. Miyue also hugged her knees and sat next to her master. She said, "Master, what kind of person is little junior brother?" If he ascends and becomes the Mahayana heavenly path in the future, what will he be like? Fushi said indifferently, that child is extraordinarily talented. Perhaps in the future, his cultivation will be above the four of you. Oh. Hao Chen, who had been silent all this while, couldn't help but smile. In that case, I really want to meet this little junior brother. Miyue also smiled. She said, yes, I also want to know what little junior brother is like. Fushi said, wait quietly. He will definitely obtain the Mahayana heavenly path's Dharmakaya and ascend to become a god again. The four of you must cultivate and rest well. Shi Ming's recovery ability is extremely strong, and he will definitely come again in less than 2 hours. We must protect gold, or the pure land of ultimate bliss will also be shaken. Do you understand? Yes. Miyue pouted. Since Jin is so important, why didn't ancestor god Pangu come personally? Fushi glared at her. Little girl, don't talk nonsense, Miyue stuck out her tongue. I know this. There is no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Fushi couldn't be bothered to talk to her anymore. He continued to look at the 6 realms and listen to the voices of the living beings. On the 11th of December, it was still snowing heavily. Yu's letter flew to Shiping Prefecture and it was the afternoon meeting time. After opening Yu's letter and taking a look, Lin Muyu quietly put the letter on the table and said, Brother Feng, you should also take a look. Feng Jixing glanced at it and flew into a rage. Damn it! Do the pirates of the South Sea Islands want to die? They even dare to touch the navy of our Qin Empire. Do they not want to live? Lin Muyu frowned. It is my lack of consideration. If I had known earlier, I would have sent the heavenly Xingtian army to escort the warships. What happened? Qin Yin asked. Feng Jixing replied respectfully, Your Highness, our returning warship was attacked by more than 10 pirates from the South Sea Archipelago a day ago. We lost nearly 400 ships and a large amount of our belongings were looted. Bailey Tsang was injured and fought to the death to drive away the pirates. Now, our warship is on its way back. Pirates? Qin Yin gritted her teeth. What is going on? Didn't our scouts say that the pirates of the South Sea Islands would not participate in the war? They have defected. Lin Muyu said, it must be Yangshang's doing. Without Yangshang behind the scenes, the pirates of the South Sea would not have the guts to attack our warships. Wei Chou said, since the pirate legion has made a move, then we cannot endure it. Darren, please allow this subordinate to lead the heavenly Xingtian army and a fleet to the South Sea and completely destroy these pirates. No. Lin Muyu waved her hand and said, can't you see that this is Yangshang's trick? His intention is to distract us and divert our forces to attack the Southern Sea Archipelago, which will take us at least a month. Besides, we don't know the terrain of the Southern Sea Archipelago at all. The fleet might be ambushed if they go there, and the Xingtian Heavenly Army is afraid of the crossbow bolts on the ground, so we can't let them take this risk. Yes. Feng Jixing nodded and said, as long as we divert our forces, Yangshang's goal will be achieved. After that, Shiping City will become the target of attack. Lin Muyu said with a solemn expression, Chenyu is in the Huiyuan province, which is thousands of miles away from Tianji City. Does Yangshang have someone by his side who is advising him? Otherwise, with Yangshang's intelligence, he may not have come up with such an idea. Qianfeng cupped his fists and said, Lin General, Yangshang has a think tank under him. The chief strategist Sun Shi, the second strategist Gong Bujin, and Gong Shangming's junior brother Zhou Ziang are all smart people. It seems that Yangshang has suffered a great loss at sea this time and finally feels that he needs the power of the think tank to outsmart him. Damn, we have a new opponent, Lin Muyu pondered and said, Marshal Ding Shi, I will give you a new mission. Please say it, Lin General. I will send 10 dragon knights to escort you to the South Sea Islands, find the leader of the pirate group, and bribe them with a lot of money to attack the port of Liaishan province, divide the celestial pole land with us, and allow them to be kings. Kings? Ding Shi was stunned. That's right, these pirates only want money and women, they've never thought about power and status. We might as well make use of this. You can promise the great Qin Empire that we can send troops to help them. Bring my letter to the alliance, and I'm sure that there's an 80% chance of success. This. Ding Shi pursed his lips and said, if it doesn't work, won't my life be over? How can it be? Situ-san will go with you. Even if it doesn't work, you can fly out on the giant dragon. The pirates of the South Sea Islands are all rookies and weak chickens. With the protection of 10 dragon knights, what is there to be afraid of? Lin General is planning to rely on 11 people to recover the pirate group that just attacked us. Not only 11 people, but also bring a few big boxes of gold, silver, and jewelry. Carry as much as the giant dragon can carry. Don't be stingy with your belongings. Yes. Ding Shi cupped his fists and said, Marshal, it would be good if you could be so generous when you pay the troops. Marshal Ding, you are a little emotional. I am not, I am going. Chapter 1151. On the morning of the 14th, at daybreak, the reports from the 4 armies arrived at Shiping Prefecture. Wei Chou led 30,000 troops and took down Jiaoyuan Prefecture in half a day. Xiang Yu led 20,000 garrison troops and took down Shangchong Prefecture in 1 day. Tang Zhen led 30,000 troops and took down Xiezhong Prefecture in 1 day. And for the most remote Nanlu County, a letter was sent over in the afternoon. Feng Jixing personally led 10,000 cavalry and similarly took down this county city. The Shang Empire actually gave up on these 4 prefectures. After all, they were remote and it was inconvenient to deploy the troops. Moreover, they were all prefectures in Xishan province. Even if they wanted to defend them, they couldn't. In the meeting hall, the glass lamp shone brightly. Lin Muyu read through the battle reports one by one and then handed them to Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi beside him. He stood up and his finger moved across the map of Xishan province, marking the positions of the 4 major prefectures. Qin Yan asked suspiciously, Big brother, why are you so depressed when the 4 armies are invincible? Lin Muyu smiled, even though we have taken down 4 important towns, it also means that our troops are no longer concentrated. It is very easy for us to be defeated one by one. This is extremely disadvantageous for us. Yes. Su Jiantao said, we are facing enemies on 3 sides and our military strength has to be doubled to ensure there is no worry. Now, we only have 300,000 troops but we have to face enemies 3 times our number. Moreover, the magic crystal cannons have been severely damaged and the ammunition reserves are less than 10 to 20% of what we had when we came. Once the war starts, we have no chance of winning. Qianfeng smiled slightly, if we include the possible disturbances from the sea, Shiping City can be said to be a battlefield on all sides. There are strong enemies on all sides and it is equivalent to sending ourselves into someone else's trap. The most important thing is still food. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, pass down the order, order General Feng, Wei Chou, Xiang Yu and Tang Zhen to immediately escort most of the rations in the prefectures to Shiping City. Only 1,000 troops will be left in each prefecture city. Appoint a new prefect and let the locals guard the prefectures to minimize our losses. Yes. At this time, Qin Yin put down the last letter and said, before the second batch of troops arrive, I'm afraid that even if we were to defend West Mountain Province, it would be somewhat stretched. Yes, this is our current situation. Lin Muyu furrowed her brows and said, the crux of the situation is that the terrain of Xishan Province is very flat, it is a plain. There is no place to defend, the border passes are also useless, we can only be in a passive position. Chen Xiaoli's eyes lit up. The marshal must have an idea, right? Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile as she said, in terms of strategic position, we currently have 3 directions to attack. The first is the north, but the north is the Tianji province, Yang Shang's lair. Even if we attack the Tianji province, we'll suffer great losses. The other direction is the east, but Chen Yu is guarding there. It's best not to provoke that crafty fellow. Then, the only option left is the south. The south is the original territory of the Darkstone Empire, mainly guarded by Long Shi's 300,000 Darkstone army. These 300,000 troops are basically the original troops of the Darkstone Empire, so their combat strength can only be considered average. As long as we attack the Liaishan province, it'll be equivalent to removing the threat from the south. With the Liaishan province as our backing, it won't be a problem for us to strategically extend our territory to the north and east. The marshal wants to take down Liaishan province? Qianfeng was somewhat stunned. He didn't think that Lin Muyu would take this step. Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. Longxi was originally the leader of the Thunder Blaze sect of the Blackstone Empire. Although his cultivation is unfathomable, his intelligence is only average. Yang Shang made a mistake by letting Longxi lead the 300,000 soldiers. Since this is the case, we should cherish this rare opportunity. Qianfeng muttered. Even so, our military strength is limited. If we attack Liaishan province, it means that we have to divide our forces. At least 150,000 soldiers are needed to defend Shiping City. After such a long time, only 150,000 soldiers are left to attack Liaishan province. Does the marshal think that 150,000 soldiers can defeat Longxi's 300,000 Blackstone soldiers? Where there is a will, there is a will. Lin Muyu said, "Pass down my order." The 3 armies are to rest and reorganize. Sister Chuyao, the elixir department is to quickly treat the wounded soldiers. How many of the wounded soldiers can recover in half a month? Chuyao was startled. She bit her red lips and said, "Some of the injuries are too serious and won't be able to recover in half a year. Those with light injuries can go to war. About half of the wounded soldiers can recover, but many of them have frostbite and won't recover in a short period of time." Do you really want to start a second war immediately? Yes, if our soldiers have frostbite, the enemy's soldiers will also have frostbite. Therefore, we must fight fast and not give the enemy too much time to prepare. Lin Muyu thought for a while and said, "I will personally lead the army to attack Liaishan province. The defense of Xishan province will be handed over to General Feng. When the time comes, leave most of the wounded soldiers to defend Xishan province. The rest of the elite soldiers will attack. In addition, I will bring along the winged people, the giant flying snakes, the Xingtian heavenly army, and the dragon cavalry regiment." Chen Xiaoli was stunned. But the marshal, Shiping City will have no air power. What should we do if the Shang army's dragon cavalry regiment descends from the sky? Don't worry. Lin Muyu smiled and said, "I brought back a few wind-type raw stones from the 64 domains. They can be used to launch powerful wind saws. They can't be used when the warships are bumpy at sea. Now, they can be used. I will ask Senior Luo Tianji to find a suitable place to place the raw stones and form a protective boundary over the entire Shiping City. When the time comes, the Dragon Cavalry Regiment will be sent to their deaths." Chen Xiaoli couldn't help but smile. The marshal already has an idea. Go back and prepare. We will set off in half a month. Yes. 3 days later, Feng Jixing, Tang Zhen, Xiang Yu, and Wei Chou returned to Shiping City with a large amount of rations. There were almost 2 million dawn of rations. This way, they would have enough rations for the expedition to the south. They would not have to worry about the rear. 18th day, Tianji Palace. Letters of military intelligence flew to Emperor Shang Yangshang and piled up on his table. There were 2 extra seats beside the dragon table. 2 strategists were helping Yangshang to look through the military intelligence. One was Sun Shi, and the other was Zhou Ziang, Gong Shangming's junior. In the main hall, the civil and military officials stood silently in their seats, motionless. Yang Shang, on the other hand, leaned on the dragon throne and rubbed his temples. Battles in the heaven realm had never been so complicated, and they had never considered the weather or the geography. A large group of gods would just fly over and beat them up. Whoever was stronger would win. How was it like a battle between mortals? There were many factors that had to be considered, and it was simply too troublesome. Sun Shi flipped through the military intelligence and said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, Jiaoyuan Prefecture and Shangchong Prefecture have been conquered. Feng Jixing, Wei Chou, and the others have gathered a large amount of rations from various prefectures. They have already been sent to Shiping City. Lin Muyu and Jingyuan Merchant Association have made many transactions regarding rations and armaments." Jingyuan Merchant Association? Yang Shang narrowed his eyes and said, "They must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. They actually dare to trade with the enemy? Humph, these merchants only care about profit. They are just some mediocre people. Are we going to attack Jingyuan Merchant Association?" Sun Shi's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. He said, "Jingyuan Merchant Association has a branch in Tianji City. There are about 500 people. Capture them all and behead them in public." Yang Shang said casually. He did not take the lives of 500 people seriously. "Yes, I will order people to carry it out." Sun Shi continued to flip through the military intelligence. Suddenly, he picked up one of them and said, "Your Majesty, Marshal Chen Yu sent a memorial from Huiyuan province." "Oh? Read it." "Yes." Sun Shi opened the memorial and said, "Respectfully, Your Majesty, your subject Chen Yu has stationed troops in Huiyuan province to guard a corner in the east. I hope Your Majesty will investigate carefully. Recently, the Qin army has been preparing rations and fodder. Lin Muyu must have a new target to attack. In my humble opinion, Tianji province and Huiyuan province are not on the list of targets to attack. Tianji province is defended by a strong military force and it is difficult for the Qin thieves to conquer it. Huiyuan province is a land of war, so there is no need to attack it. Therefore, Lin Muyu will definitely attack the Liaishan province in the south. I hope Your Majesty can make a plan early. Although Commander Longxi of the Black Lava Army is brave and fierce, but Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, Qian Feng and the others are all intelligent people. I beg Your Majesty to send an advisor to Liaishan province at night to assist Commander Longxi to protect Liaishan province." "That's all?" Yang Shang opened his eyes. "Yes, that's all." "What does Lord Sun Shi think?" Yang Shang asked. Sun Shi's eyes were solemn as he said, "Marshal Chen Yu's considerations are very thorough. Lin Muyu is indeed the most likely to attack Liaishan province, and Lord Longxi is indeed not as intelligent as Lin Muyu. Then let's do as you say. Is that advisor willing to go to Liaishan province to make a contribution?" Sun Shi was silent. Gong Bujin hid among the civil officials, his expression unchanged. Only Zhou Ziang bowed his head and said, "Since none of you are willing to meet this Lin Muyu, then I, Zhou Ziang, will go." Yang Shang couldn't help but smile. It would be best if Lord Ziang goes, but, your senior apprentice brother Gong Shangming was defeated by Lin Muyu. What does Lord Ziang think of his chances? Heaven disposes, but man disposes. How can we know who is stronger if we don't compete? Zhou Ziang raised his head. Even though he had a refined and delicate appearance, he was the same as Gong Shangming. Between his brows, there was an aura of a genius that could seize the heavens and earth. Yang Shang smiled, "That would be best. We will immediately promote you to the position of advisor of the Central Protectorate Army, with the rank of Major Second Rank. We will also send 5 Dragon Knights to escort you to Liaishan province. What do you think?" "Thank you, Your Majesty." Zhou Ziang turned and left. After a while, Yang Shang looked at Sun Shi and said, "Lord Sun, what do you think of Zhou Xiang's chances? Sun Qi's expression was calm as he said, Lord Zhou Xiang is a natural genius. If he calmly confronts Lin Muyu, he will definitely not be at a disadvantage. Add to that Lord Longxi's strength, and it is very likely that he will defeat Lin Muyu. This subject's only worry is that Lord Zhou Xiang is too eager to make a contribution and will instead become a fatal weakness for Lin Muyu. Yang Shang. Chapter 1152. On the 19th day, the snow stopped, but the sun still couldn't be seen. In the backyard of Shiping Prefecture, Lin Muyu accompanied Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, Chu Yao, and Feng Jixing to eat the spiritual fire department's big pot of rice, a bowl of vegetable soup, and 2 meat pies. Moreover, this kind of meat pies were only minced meat mixed with vegetable leaves. The taste was indescribably strange, but it was considered good to fill one's stomach when there was a shortage of food. After eating the last mouthful of meat pies, Lin Muyu looked at the sky outside and said, "It's been 7 or 8 days. Why hasn't Ding Shi come back yet? Is he detained? Even if he is detained, at least Situsen can fight his way out of the encirclement and report." Feng Jixing said, "Who knows?" At this moment, there was the sound of hurried footsteps outside. Wei Chou said excitedly, "General Ding Shi is back. Please come in." Yes. In the front hall, Ding Shi came in with a helmet in his arms, his face full of smiles. "Greetings, Your Highness, greetings, Lin General." He knelt on one knee and saluted. "You may rise, General Ding Shi." Qin Yin said with a smile. "It seems that Ding Shuai has completed his task." Lin Muyu said with a smile. "Your subordinate has not failed his mission. The pirates of the southern islands have agreed to send troops, but they have a condition." "Oh, what condition?" Ding Shi hesitated for a few seconds and said, "They will attack the seaport of Liaishan province in 10 days, but they will not attack Qianshan city. Instead, they will wait for us to take Qianshan city and give them the city, and we will give them 100,000 caddies of gold in succession. Otherwise, the deal will not continue." "How greedy!" Feng Jixing said. "Yes, pirates are greedy." Ding Shi's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, "And if I'm right, once these pirates get Mount Qianshan city, they will plunder wantonly, rob money and women, return to the sea with the money and women, and continue to live like emperors in the archipelago. They want Mount Qianshan city not to occupy it, but to covet the treasures it has accumulated for thousands of years. Thieves will always be thieves." Feng Jixing laughed. Are you going to agree to their conditions?" "Why wouldn't they agree? As long as they agree to attack from the west coast, it'll be fine. At the very least, they'll be able to restrain a portion of Longxi's forces. What about Thousand Mountain City? Should we give it to them?" "Give it. You must give it to the Qin Empire. You will do what you say." Lin Muyu's eyes were filled with ridicule. Tang Xiaoxi smiled and said, "Mu, what are you up to?" "I'm not selling medicine. It's just that these pirates want it, so we'll satisfy them. It's a deal anyway." Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows. "Ding Shuai, how many people do they have? How many ships?" Ding Shi pondered and said, "As far as I know, there are more than 3,000 ships in the archipelago. As for the number of people, the total number is more than 100,000. They have been harassing the coastal villages of the Blackstone Empire and the Tianji Empire for a living. In recent years, they have often harassed the Lingkong and Lingdong provinces of our country. These people are like cancer to the celestial pole continent and the shattered cauldron world." Lin Muyu gently stroked the hilt of the Xianyuan sword at her waist with her left hand, pondering in silence. "Mu, what are you thinking?" Tang Xiaoxi asked. Feng Jixing smiled faintly and said, "He's ready to kill." "Oh? Every time you strokes the hilt of the sword, it means that he's about to make a decision that ordinary people don't dare to make, right?" Feng Jixing asked with a smile. Lin Muyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Brother Feng, you're really observant. That's right, I want to take this opportunity to eliminate these pirates. There's no benevolence to speak of with this group of scum. We'll pretend to agree to their conditions and let them enter Mount Xianshan. Then, we'll ambush 2 elite troops to cut off their retreat and block these pirates in Mount Xianshan. If they're willing to surrender, we'll put them in the prison camp. If they're unwilling, we'll kill them on the spot. Anyway, sooner or later, Mount Xianshan province will be our territory. I agree. We'll kill many birds with one stone. Qianfeng nodded. Qin Yin smiled faintly. I agree too. Then it's decided. Lin Muyu thought for a while and said, let's keep the original plan unchanged. When we attack Mount Xianshan province, the pirates will also launch an attack on the harbor. We'll attack from the west and north together. Let's see how Longxi can resist. Yes. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. It was the new year. On the 2nd of January, it was snowing heavily. In the past half a month, Si Kongyao had sent out the Tianji sect summon order. Thousands of people had already gathered in Shiping City. Baizhe mercenary summon order had also been sent out a long time ago. An endless stream of Baizhe mercenaries gathered from all directions. With Si Kongyao and Liu Bai's powerful rallying power, they actually managed to summon close to 100,000 people in half a month. This also meant that Lin Muyu could mobilize a total of 250,000 troops this time. Early in the morning, the war drum sounded. 250,000 troops set off from Shiping City in an endless stream, heading towards Mount Xianshan province. Lin Muyu personally led the troops that would accompany them to battle. Qianfeng, Wei Chou, Su Jiantao, Qin Yong, Qin Yan, Si Kongyao, and Liu Bai were among them. Feng Jixing, Xiang Yu, and Chen Xiaoli were left behind to guard Shiping City. Feng Jixing's literary and military talents could be counted on one's fingers. It was reassuring to let him guard Shiping City. Fortunately, the snow had stopped for nearly half a month. The snow on the ground had long melted. It was not difficult to transport the magic crystal cannons and other supplies. Moreover, Si Kongyao and Liu Bai had already built sturdy official roads when they were guarding Shiping City. It was not difficult for them to travel to Mount Xianshan province. 3 days later, the army arrived at the northern pass of Mount Xianshan province. The army was exhausted from the march. Lin Muyu ordered the 3 armies to set up camp 5 kilometers outside the pass. The attack would begin at dawn the next day. At dusk, the flames of the oil lamps flickered in the cold wind. Outside the tent, the northern wind howled. The weather was so cold that everyone was shivering. A huge map was spread out on the table in the commander's tent. On the map, the northern pass was marked in red. Wei Chou placed his hand on the hilt of his sword and said, "The northern pass is the only way from Xishan province to Mount Xianshan province. It is also one of the military's most important towns. The pass is very sturdy and has a height of 20 meters. It is said that Longxi has sent General Liu Liang to guard the northern pass. There are nearly 100,000 troops under his command. Moreover, Qianshan City is 200 kilometers south of the northern pass. The cavalry can arrive in half a day. Once we begin to attack the northern pass, it will mean that we have officially begun to clash with Longxi's army. Will Longxi send his main force to the northern pass?" Lin Muyu asked. Wei Chou smiled. It was originally very likely, but now it is impossible. Since this morning, the hundreds of thousands of pirates on the islands have begun to attack the seaports of Mount Xianshan province. Longxi can't even take care of himself. How can he send his main force to the northern pass? I don't think so. Lin Muyu said lightly, "Don't you smell something?" Smell? Wei Chou and Su Jiantao were shocked. Qianfeng smiled. I have the same premonition as Marshal. Something will definitely happen tonight. Are they going to attack the camp? Wei Chou was shocked. Lin Muyu nodded. That's right. After we arrived, the northern gate was completely silent. We didn't even see a single cavalry scout. This can only mean that they knew we were coming and were prepared. If I were the defending general, I would also take advantage of the fact that our army is exhausted from the long journey to attack the camp. But there are only 100,000 soldiers in the northern pass. Those who are good at using troops must be good at using surprise. Lin Muyu frowned. Forget it. Order the 3 armies to strengthen their vigilance. Wei Chou, you lead 20,000 cavalrymen of the Longdan army camp to ambush in the jungle on the right side of the camp. Situ Sun, order the artillery battalion to prepare all the magic crystal cannons. Aim at the front of the camp and prepare to bombard. Qianfeng, order the armor demon battalion. Once the enemy attacks, the armor demons will be the first line of defense. Yes. Everyone cupped their fists together and then received Lin Muyu's arrow of command. After a while, Lin Muyu raised her head and looked at Ding Shi. Our dragon riders brought back military reports. Why does it seem like the pirates aren't making any big movements? It's quiet. Marshal, don't worry. There will definitely be movements. Is Marshal Ding sure these pirates won't rebel? After all, they only recognize money. They won't. Ding Shi smiled faintly. I have already signed the contract. No matter what price anyone offers, my army is willing to pay 3 times the price. Will they believe you? Yes. When I told them that they were willing to pay 3 times the price, they looked very distressed. It was as if they were selling their wives. Lin Muyu pursed her lips and was speechless. At the same time, at the western port of Thousand Mountain City, a Black Lava Army cavalry regiment arrived at the port. On the ocean, there was a dense group of pirate warships. Zhou Xiang, who was dressed like a scholar, entered the meeting hall of the port. The other party was a group of pirates with mustaches. Each of them looked fierce. If not for the group of Black Lava Army generals behind Zhou Xiang, he would have lost in terms of momentum. It's decided. Zhou Xiang pushed the document forward. As long as your alliance is willing to attack the Qin army from the sea, I am willing to offer you 50,000 top-quality beauties, 300,000 kilograms of gold and 1 million bolts of cloud brocade. Lord Military Advisor is really generous. With such sincerity, we have no choice but to cooperate. The pirate leader squinted his eyes and kept the document with Zhou Xiang's signature. Military Advisor, please go back and report. Tomorrow morning, we will go ashore and attack the Qin army from the side. No, tomorrow morning is too late. I want you to attack through the night. Why, can't I? Alright, why can't I? The pirate leader smiled. Then it's a deal. Good. Zhou Xiang exited the meeting hall and immediately said to the generals on both sides. Release the letter and tell Lord Longxi that the plan is successful. Immediately launch an attack and use the entire army to attack the Qin army. This is our only chance. Otherwise, in a protracted battle, we will not be a match for the elites of the Qin army. We must use speed to catch Lin Muyu off guard. Yes, Military Advisor. Zhou Xiang looked coldly at the snow outside. He tightened the belt of his cloak and mounted his horse. Let's go. We will rush to the battlefield at the northern pass. Now, the battle there should have already started. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.